4 European folk horror stories from villages that should not exist. Europe is full of villages that look beautiful from a distance. Stone houses on hillsides, church towers above red roofs, narrow roads cutting through old forests, fields divided by walls older than most countries, small inns with yellow lights in the windows, the kind of places people photograph from car windows and promise themselves they will visit someday. But some villages do not want to be visited. Some are not marked on any road sign. Some appear only in fog. Some have church bells that ring from underground. Some keep customs no tourist was ever meant to understand. And some villages remember every stranger who has ever passed through. Folk horror is not always about monsters. Sometimes it is about a place where everyone knows a rule except you. A village where the old people stop talking when you enter. A festival that seems charming until you realize no one is allowed to leave before sunrise. A field where nothing grows except one tree that everyone fears. A church where the bell tower is empty, but the bells still ring beneath your feet. The fear comes from being outside the circle. You do not know the songs. You do not know the prayers. You do not know which door to avoid. And by the time someone finally tells you the rule, it is already too late. Tonight's stories are about old roads, forgotten villages, rural rituals, and places where modern people find out that not everything ancient has died. Some traditions survive because people love them. Others survive because people are afraid to stop. These are 4 European folk horror stories from villages that should not exist. And if you ever find one by accident, do not stay for the festival. Do not eat what they offer. Do not follow the bells. And above all, do not let them learn your name. Story 1. The village that was not on the map. The village was not on the map. That was what scared me later. Not the fog. Not the old woman in the road. Not the bells. Not even the thing they carried through the square after sunset. It was the map. Because I checked before we left the rental car office. I checked again at the guest house. I checked twice on my phone before we lost signal. There was no village between Valdres and St. Cernin. There was forest, a narrow road, a ruined watchtower marked as a minor historical site, then nothing for 20 kilometers. But somewhere in that nothing we found a village, and everyone there already knew my wife's name. My name is Thomas Reed. My wife, Claire, and I went to southern France in late September after 3 years of saying we should travel before life made it impossible. I was 36. She was 34. We had no children yet, though not for lack of trying. That had become one of those quiet wounds in our marriage. Not something we fought about, something worse, something we stepped around carefully. We chose the trip because Claire wanted old towns, vineyards, stone churches, and long drives through the countryside. I wanted whatever made her smile again. We flew into Toulouse, rented a small blue car with a manual transmission I pretended to understand, and spent the first few days doing exactly what people do in that part of France. We ate too much bread. We got lost in market streets. We climbed church steps. We drank wine we could not pronounce. We took photographs of doors. On the 5th day, we left a guest house near Valdres and planned to drive to a village called St. Cernin, where Claire had booked a room above a family restaurant. The owner had sent directions in a message. "Do not trust the fastest route," he wrote. "The forest road is beautiful, but after rain, the signal disappears." That should have been the first warning. The morning was grey, not stormy, just low clouds, damp fields, and mist lying between the hills. The kind of weather that made every stone wall look older than it was. Claire loved it. She rolled down the window for a while, even though the air was cold, just to smell the wet leaves. "This is exactly what I wanted," she said. I glanced at her. She had not said something like that in months. So I smiled and kept driving. The main road narrowed after Valdres. Vineyards gave way to woods. The GPS line curved through a green mass on the screen, then began to stutter. The blue arrow froze, jumped, spun, then settled on a road that did not exist. Claire laughed. That is helpful. I still have the paper map. You bought that as a joke, and now I am a genius. She smiled. I pulled over near a stone cross at the side of the road and unfolded the map across the steering wheel. The road we were on was there, a thin, grey line twisting through forest. The ruined watchtower was there too, a tiny square symbol about 12 kilometers ahead. St. Cernin lay beyond it. No other settlement, no fork, no side road, no village. We kept going. For 20 minutes, the road climbed through dense trees. The fog thickened, not suddenly. Slowly, the trees lost their tops first. Then the road edges faded. Then the world narrowed to headlights, wet asphalt, and the pale trunks of plane trees leaning over us like bones. Claire stopped taking pictures. You okay? I asked. Yeah, but... She sounded distracted. A few minutes later, she said, Do you hear that? I turned the heater down. What? She listened. Bells. I heard only tires on wet road. Then, faintly, there it was. One bell, far away, low, not a church bell exactly. Deeper, slower, a sound that seemed to come through the ground more than the air. Another bell answered it, then another. The tones moved in a pattern, not a melody, a signal. That must be St. Cernin, I said. Claire looked at the map. We are too far. Sound carries in fog. That far? I did not answer. The road curved sharply left. As we rounded the bend, a woman stood in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded slightly on wet leaves and stopped less than 10 feet from her. Claire gasped. The woman did not move. She was old, very old, short, thin, wrapped in a black coat and a dark wool scarf tied under her chin. Her hands rested on the top of a wooden cane. She stood in the fog as if she had been waiting there all morning. I rolled down my window. Madame, are you all right? She looked past me, not at my face, at Claire. Then she smiled. Her teeth were small and grey. Claire, she said. My wife went completely still. I felt the air leave the car. What did she say? I whispered. Claire did not answer. The old woman stepped closer. Her cane tapped once on the road. Claire, she said again, in a French accent so thick, the name sounded almost like a song. You are late. I locked the doors. It was instinctive and useless. The woman heard the click and smiled wider. How does she know your name? I asked. Claire's face had gone pale. I do not know. The old woman lifted one hand and pointed down the road behind her. The village is waiting. I tried to sound calm. We are going to St. Cernin. No. She shook her head. Not yet. The bell sounded again, closer now. Claire flinched. I put the car in reverse. The old woman's smile faded. No, she said sharply. For the first time, her voice lost its softness. You must not go back through the trees. I looked in the rearview mirror. The road behind us was swallowed by fog. Completely, not 50 yards of visibility. Not 20. Nothing. Just white. The old woman pointed forward again. The road remembers forward. That sentence did something to me. It was not a threat. It was not a warning. It was the kind of thing someone says when they are explaining weather. I should have reversed anyway. Instead, I drove forward. The old woman stepped aside. As we passed, she reached out and touched the passenger window with 2 fingers. Claire jerked away from the glass. The old woman whispered something I could not hear. Then the fog closed behind us. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The bells continued. Low, slow, somewhere ahead. How did she know your name? I asked again. Claire shook her head. I do not know. Have you been here before? No. Your family? No. But something in her voice made me glance at her. She was staring at her hands. Claire. She swallowed. When I was little, my grandmother used to tell me a story. What kind of story? A village in the hills. A place that took women who were waiting for children. I almost missed the turn because of how sharply I looked at her. What? It was just a story. She was from Provence. She had a lot of strange stories. You never told me that. I have not thought about it in years. The bells rang again. This time, I felt the vibration in the steering wheel. Claire whispered. She said the village had no name. The road descended. The fog thinned, and the village appeared below us. It lay in a shallow valley, surrounded by dark trees. Stone houses clustered around a square. Roofs of old red tile, narrow lanes, a small church with no visible bell tower, smoke rising from chimneys. It looked impossibly old, not abandoned, not ruined, alive, but alive in the wrong century. No cars, no power lines, no satellite dishes, no modern signs, only the village, tucked into the valley where the map said nothing should be. Claire said, Thomas, I see it. There is no village here. I know. We should not stop, but the road behind us had disappeared again. Fog filled it from edge to edge. Ahead, the village road opened like the only available thought. I drove down. As we entered, people came out of their houses, not rushing, not surprised. They stepped into doorways and leaned from windows. Old men in dark jackets, women in aprons, children with serious faces. A man carrying firewood stopped in the middle of the lane and watched us pass. Every face turned toward Claire. Not me, Claire. We reached the square. The fountain was dry. A stone figure stood in its center, worn smooth by time. A woman holding something against her chest. At first, I thought it was a baby. Then I saw the shape more clearly. It was a bundle of branches tied with cord. I stopped the car near the church. The engine idled too loudly in the silent square. No one approached. They only watched. I checked my phone. No signal. The GPS showed us in blank green forest, not on a road, not near a village, just a blue dot floating in nothing. Claire reached for my hand. We need to leave. I know, but before I could put the car in gear, the church door opened. A man stepped out. He was not a priest, at least not like any priest I had seen. He wore a long, dark coat, not robes, and a red scarf around his neck. He was tall, perhaps in his 70s, with white hair brushed back from a narrow face and eyes so pale they seemed almost silver in the fog. He walked toward us with careful dignity. When he reached the car, he did not look at me. He bowed slightly to Claire. Madam Reed, he said in English. My heart thudded. Claire whispered, drive. I put the car in gear. The engine died. No sputter, no warning light, just dead. The man smiled faintly. The road is difficult today, he said. I tried the ignition. Nothing. He looked at me for the first time. Mr. Reed, you are welcome here as witness. Witness, not guest, not visitor. Witness. To what? I asked. He turned back to Claire. To what was asked? Claire shook her head. I did not ask you anything. No, he said, not us. The villagers around the square murmured softly. The sound moved through them like wind through dry leaves. Claire's hand tightened around mine. The man said, Your mother's mother spoke for you before you were born. Claire's breathing changed. Her grandmother, the story, the village that took women who were waiting for children. This is insane, I said. The man did not react. He looked toward one of the houses and raised his hand. 2 women came forward, carrying a wooden tray. On the tray sat a small round loaf of dark bread, a cup of milk, and a little bowl of salt. The smell of the bread drifted into the car, warm, sweet, wrongly comforting. Claire turned her face away. No, she said. The man's expression remained gentle. You must eat before sunset. She is not eating anything, I said. At that, several villagers looked at me. Only looked, but the weight of it pressed against the car windows. The man nodded once, as though he had expected my answer. Then you have until the second bell. He stepped back. The 2 women placed the tray on the hood of our car. Then everyone returned to watching. I tried the engine again. Dead. I tried the hazard lights. Nothing. Claire opened her door. What are you doing? I whispered. Getting out. Claire. I cannot sit here waiting. She stepped into the square. Immediately, the villagers lowered their heads. Not in greeting. In recognition. I got out, too. The air smelled of damp stone, wood, smoke, and something sweet rotting beneath it all. The village felt colder than the road. The tall man stood by the church steps. You remember the old words? He asked Claire. No. Your grandmother would have taught them. My grandmother taught me nursery rhymes and how to make soup. A few villagers smiled at that. Not kindly. The man tilted his head. She also taught you what to say when the cradle is empty. Claire's face broke. Only for a second. But I saw it. So did he. That was when I began to understand the shape of the trap. Not all of it. Not the rules. Not the history. But the bait. This village had found the one wound we carried with us. The one we did not mention in rental cars or guest houses or restaurants with views. The one that made every crying baby in an airport feel like a private accusation. I stepped between Claire and the man. We are leaving, he Sehil. Not angrily, almost sadly. Most witnesses say that. Stop calling me that. Then do not witness. He stared at him. What does that mean? He pointed toward the church. Wait inside until morning. If she refuses at the 3rd bell, you may both go. That should have sounded hopeful. It did not. Claire said, what happens if I accept? The square went silent. Even the children stopped shifting. The man smiled. Then the village remembers your line with kindness. What does that mean? You know what it means. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I grabbed her hand. No. He is manipulating you. The man looked at me with mild pity. Hope has always been easy to call manipulation from the outside. I wanted to hit him. I truly did. But the villagers were too many. And something told me that violence here would not work the way it worked elsewhere. The first bell rang. It came from nowhere visible. The church had no tower, no bell frame, no rope, but the sound rolled through the square so deeply that the dry fountain trembled. Birds rose from the trees beyond the roofs. Claire flinched. The villagers began moving, not in panic. In preparation, children were led indoors. Shutters closed. Lanterns were lit. A group of men crossed the square, carrying long poles wrapped in cloth. Women gathered near the fountain with baskets of dried flowers. The tall man looked at the sky. Sunset is kind tonight, he said. There is time. He walked back into the church. Claire and I stood beside our dead car. The tray remained on the hood. Bread, milk, salt. I picked up the tray and threw it into the square. The cup shattered. Milk spread across the stones. The bread rolled once and stopped near the dry fountain. The villagers froze. Claire whispered, Thomas. For several seconds, no one moved. Then, an old woman stepped from a doorway. The same woman from the road. She walked slowly to the bread, bent with difficulty, and picked it up. Milk soaked into the hem of her dress. She looked at me, then she took a bite. The sound of her chewing was very loud in the square. Witnesses should be careful, she said. I turned to Claire. We walk. To where? Back up the road. The fog. We walk through it. She looked at the village, at the watching faces, at the church. Then she nodded. We left the car behind and started up the road we had driven in on. No one stopped us. That was almost worse. They let us go. We passed the last stone house. Then the low wall. Then the first trees. The fog thickened immediately. Within 20 steps, the village disappeared behind us. Within 30, I could not see the road beneath my shoes. I held Claire's hand and kept walking uphill. The air grew colder. The bells were silent now. Our footsteps sounded wrong, flat and close, as if the fog swallowed them before they could echo. After 5 minutes, we should have reached the bend. After 10, the stone cross. After 20, the higher road. We reached none of them. The ground stayed level. The fog stayed white. Claire squeezed my hand. Thomas, I know. What do we do? Keep going. So we did. We walked until my legs began to ache, until the cold damp crept through my jacket, until Claire stumbled twice and I had to hold her upright. Then, ahead, something appeared. A shape in the fog, a low wall, a roofline, a fountain. We stepped back into the village square from the opposite side. The villagers were waiting. Not all of them, only a few now. The tall man stood by our car. The old woman stood beside him, holding the bitten loaf. He looked neither pleased nor surprised. The road remembers forward, he said. Claire started crying then, quietly, one hand over her mouth. I felt useless in a way I had never felt before. The tall man gestured toward the church. Inside, he said. Before the second bell, we went because there was nowhere else to go. The church smelled of wax, damp wood, and old stone. It was small, no stained glass, no gold, no crucifix above the altar. Instead, on the back wall, there was a carved wooden figure of a woman with branches wrapped around her arms. Her face had been worn smooth by centuries of touching hands. The pews were narrow and dark. Candles burned in red glass cups along both side walls. At the front, where an altar should have been, stood a cradle, not a baby cradle, a rough wooden frame filled with twigs, ribbons, and folded pieces of paper. Some papers were yellow with age. Some looked new. A low sound came from beneath the floor. At first, I thought it was wind. Then I realized it was humming. Voices, many voices, women's voices. Claire heard it too. She stepped closer to me. The tall man entered behind us and closed the door. Outside, the villagers began to sing. Softly, no words, I recognized. The melody rose and fell in a pattern that made my skin prickle. What is this place? I asked. The man walked past us toward the cradle, a place that keeps promises. To whom? To those who came before roads, before maps, before names were written on paper. Claire said, my grandmother left France when she was 19. Yes, he nodded. And before she left, her mother brought her here. Claire shook her head. No, she was not married. She was frightened. She was told she would never bear children. She asked, my grandmother had 3 children. The man smiled. Yes. Claire closed her eyes. I could see the thought forming in her mind even though she hated it. What if that was the cruelty? Not certainty, possibility, the kind that slips into grief and makes a home there. The man reached into the cradle and removed a folded piece of paper. He held it out. Claire did not take it, so he unfolded it himself. The handwriting was faded brown, French words, but one line was clear. A name, Claire, my wife's name, written decades before she was born. Claire whispered, "No." The man's face softened. "You were promised." I stepped forward. "She is not property." "No." He folded the paper again. "She is payment." The second bell rang. It shook dust from the rafters. The candles flickered. Beneath the floor, the humming stopped. Claire clapped both hands over her ears. Outside, the singing grew louder. The tall man placed the paper back in the cradle. "Second bell," he said. "What happens at the third?" Claire's voice was barely audible. The man looked at her. "At the third, you choose. Eat and be remembered kindly. Refuse and be forgotten kindly." "What does that mean?" He did not answer. Instead, the old woman from the road entered the church, carrying something wrapped in white cloth. She walked slowly to the cradle and placed the bundle inside. It moved. Claire stepped back. I grabbed her arm. The bundle shifted again. A tiny cry came from it. Human. Newborn. Small. Claire made a sound I had never heard from her before. Not fear. Not joy. Something between them. The old woman unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a baby. Red-faced. Eyes closed. Alive. The church seemed to lean toward Claire. The villagers sang louder outside. The tall man spoke gently. "What is empty may be filled." I pulled Claire away. "No." She was trembling. "Thomas." "No." "Look at me." She did. Tears on her face. "She is not ours," I said. The baby cried again. Claire's face twisted with pain. The old woman lifted the child from the cradle and held it toward her. "She can be." The words hit harder than any threat. Claire took one step. He held her hand. She stopped. The old woman's eyes sharpened. "Witness," she said to me, "do not pull against what you cannot understand." "I understand enough." "You understand loss, not the bargain." Claire whispered, "What happens to the baby if I say no?" No one answered. That silence told me everything. The baby was not a gift. It was bait. Or worse, it was borrowed. The tall man looked at the old woman, then back to Claire. "All children belong somewhere." "Where did this one come from?" I asked. The old woman smiled. "The road." The church door opened behind us. A cold wind blew through. Outside, in the square, the villagers had formed a circle around the fountain. The fountain was no longer dry. Black water filled the basin. Something floated in it. Branch, ribbons, little paper names. A line of women stood near the fountain, each holding a candle. Some young, some old, some pregnant, some with faces hollowed by grief. Claire stared at them. One woman lifted her candle slightly. I recognized her, not personally, from a photograph in Claire's grandmother's house. A black and white picture of a woman standing in a vineyard, hair pinned back, expression severe. Claire's great-grandmother, dead, long before I met Claire. The woman in the square smiled. Claire whispered, "That is impossible." The tall man said, "Here, the line is never broken." The third bell did not ring. Not yet. But I felt it gathering. A pressure under the floor, in the walls, in my teeth. I knew we had minutes, maybe less. I looked around the church. Doors, windows, altar, cradle, candles. There had to be a way out. That was not the road. The old woman watched me. She knew. I saw it in her face. She knew exactly when I noticed the trapdoor. It was beneath the first pew on the left, a square seam in the stone floor, almost invisible. A small iron ring tucked into the shadow. I looked away immediately, hoping she had not seen. She had. The old woman smiled. You do not want what is under the church. That depends. No, she said softly. It does not. The baby cried again. Claire closed her eyes. The sound was undoing her. I moved closer and put both hands on her face. Listen to me. She shook her head. I cannot. Yes, you can. You do not know what it feels like. That hurt. Because it was true. Not completely, but enough. I did not know what it felt like inside her body, inside her silence, inside the monthly cycle of hope and blood and apology neither of us deserved. But I knew what a trap looked like. And grief, dressed as mercy, was still grief. This is not our child, I said. Her eyes opened. The old woman began humming. The villagers outside joined her. The baby's crying stopped. That was worse. Claire looked toward the child. The baby was watching her now. Eyes open, too focused, too old. The third bell began. Not a strike. A vibration. A deep sound rising from beneath the church floor. The candles flickered blue. The cradle branches rustled, though no wind touched them. The old woman held out the baby. Claire Reed, the tall man said. Will you eat and be remembered? The church waited. The village waited. The dead waited. Claire looked at me. Then at the baby. Then at the old woman. For one terrible second, I thought she would say yes. Instead, Claire whispered, no. The sound in the floor stopped. The villagers outside stopped singing. The old woman's face went slack. Not angry. Empty. The baby in her arms opened its mouth, and from that tiny mouth came the voice of the old woman. Then be forgotten kindly. Every candle went out. I grabbed Claire and ran for the trapdoor. I do not know why. Maybe because the front door opened onto the square and the square belonged to them. Maybe because the old woman had warned me away from the thing beneath the church. In a place like that, warnings sometimes point toward the only truth. I reached the pew, kicked it hard enough to scrape it sideways, and pulled the iron ring. The trapdoor opened with a wet groan. Cold air rushed up. Stone steps descended into darkness. Claire did not hesitate. She went down first. I followed and slammed the trapdoor behind us. Above, the third bell struck. The sound hit like a physical blow. Claire stumbled on the steps. I caught her. The stairway spiraled down through raw stone. No candles, no rile, only darkness and the dull pulse of the bell above us. I used my phone flashlight. To my shock, it worked. The beam showed damp walls covered in carved names. Hundreds, thousands. Names cut into stone. Some old enough to be nearly smooth. Some fresh. Claire touched one. Her grandmother's name. Then another. Her mother's. Then lower down. Claire. The letters looked newly cut. Beside it was an empty space. Waiting. The stairs ended in a chamber beneath the church. It was not large. The ceiling was low, supported by rough stone arches. Roots pushed through cracks in the walls. At the center of the chamber hung the bell, not in a tower, not above ground. Here, underground. It was enormous. Black iron, green with age, suspended from beams that looked like bone. There was no clapper inside it. Instead, cords hung from its rim, not ropes. Hair, braided human hair. Bundles and bundles of it, tied with ribbons, paper names, and little pieces of cloth. Claire covered her mouth. At the far end of the chamber was a narrow tunnel. A draft moved through it. Real air. Wet leaves. Rain. Forest. I grabbed Claire's hand. The bell rang behind us. No one touched it. The sound exploded through the chamber. Names on the walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. From the stairway above, voices began descending. Not feet. Voices, all calling Claire. Her mother, her grandmother, women she did not know. A chain of voices pulling at her from behind. Claire slowed. I pulled her forward. Do not listen. They sound like my family. I know. They are saying goodbye. No, I said. They are saying stay. The tunnel narrowed. We had to crouch. Roots caught at our clothes. Mud sucked at our shoes. Behind us, the bell rang again. The light on my phone flickered. Ahead, I saw pale grey fog. An opening. We crawled toward it. Something grabbed my ankle. I looked back. A hand had emerged from the mud. Thin, white, fingers digging into my sock. Another hand rose beside it. Then another, not trying to kill me, trying to hold me in place. Claire turned back. Her face changed when she saw them. She reached for me, then stopped. One of the muddy hands had a ring on it. A small gold wedding band with a missing stone. Claire knew it. I knew from her face. My grandmother, she whispered. The hand tightened around my ankle. A voice came from the mud. Soft, loving. Claire, stay. Claire sobbed. I kicked hard. The hand held. The mud around it stirred. More fingers surfaced. I looked at Claire and did the only cruel thing that might save us. She left, I said. Claire stared at me. What? Your grandmother left. She left France. She left this place. She lived. She had a life. She had you. The voice in the mud whispered, Claire. She left, I said again. So leave. Claire's expression changed. Pain became anger. Anger became clarity. She grabbed a broken root from the wall and struck the hand around my ankle. Once, twice. The fingers opened. We crawled. The tunnel collapsed behind us in small bursts of mud and roots. The voices screamed then, not in rage, in grief. That was worse. We emerged from a hole between tree roots halfway up the hill above the village. Fog covered the woods. Rain fell lightly below us. Through the trees, the village square glowed with lanterns. The villagers stood in a circle around the fountain. No one moved. The church door was open. The black water in the fountain reflected no sky. Claire and I ran uphill. This time, the fog opened. The road appeared. Real road. Wet asphalt. The stone cross. Our rental car was parked beside it. Not dead in the village square. Parked where we had stopped earlier to check the map. Doors locked. Engine cold. No tray on the hood. No milk. No bread. No salt. Claire collapsed against the passenger door. I unlocked the car with shaking hands. The engine started. The GPS came alive. Saint Cernin. 20 kilometers ahead. No village between. I drove. Neither of us spoke until we reached the guest house. The owner opened the door before I knocked. He looked at us, muddy, pale, shaking, and said nothing for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. You took the forest road, he said. E stared at him. You know about that village? His face closed. There is no village. But you know, there is no village, he repeated. Not anymore. Claire asked, what was it called? The man looked at her, then at me, then down the empty street behind us. Do not name a place that has forgotten itself, he said. That was all he would tell us. We left Saint Cernin the next morning. We returned the rental car in Toulouse, flew home 2 days early. For months afterward, Claire had nightmares about bells. She would wake with both hands over her ears, whispering that someone was singing under the floor. We stopped trying for children, not because of the village, not entirely, but because something in us had changed. Hope no longer felt simple. A year later, Claire received a letter. No stamp, no postmark, no return address, just her name written in dark ink. Inside was a folded piece of old paper. On it was a line of French neither of us wanted to translate. Below it, in English, someone had written, "The line remains open." Under that was a pressed flower, small, white, dry, and a lock of hair tied with red thread. Claire burned the letter in the kitchen sink. But that night, at exactly sunset, we heard a bell. One low note, far away, impossible, coming from beneath the house. We moved 3 weeks later. Then again. Then, across the country, it followed. Not every night, not every month. Only when the weather turns cold and wet. Only when fog gathers low along the road. Only when Claire says she feels like someone has been standing just outside a room after she leaves it. Last September, on the anniversary of that trip, we woke to find mud on the kitchen floor. Not much, just 2 footprints. Small, bare, a child's. They led from the back door to the hallway, then stopped outside our bedroom. Claire sat on the edge of the bed and stared at them until sunrise. I cleaned them before the neighbors came. Under the mud, scratched lightly into the floorboards, were 3 words. Not in French, not in English. A language older than both, maybe? But somehow we understood them. She is waiting. Claire has not spoken about children since. And when we drive now, she keeps a paper map folded in her lap. Not because she trusts maps, because she wants proof. Proof of where roads are supposed to go. Proof of where villages are not supposed to be. Proof that if the fog clears and stone roofs appear in a valley that should be empty, we will know what it means before the bells start. But I know something now that I did not know then. Maps do not show every place. Some places are not found because they are hidden. Some are found because they are hungry. And some villages are not on the map because the map is wiser than we are. It knows better than to write their names down. Story 2. The bells under St. Ola's Church. The first thing they told me was not to count the bells. Do not go into the church after dark. Not stay away from the crypt. Not leave before the tide comes in. Those warnings came later. The first warning was simpler. If you hear the bells under St. Ola's, do not count them. That was what the woman at the inn said when she handed me the room key. She said it the way someone might say the hot water takes a minute, or mind the step by the door. Casual, practical, as if it were ordinary advice given to every visitor. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She did not laugh back. My name is Nathan Ward. At the time, I was working as a freelance sound recordist based in London, though most of my work took me to places that were either too loud, too remote, or too poorly funded to hire anyone better. I recorded interviews, ambient sound, old machinery, the inside of abandoned railway stations, waves against harbour walls. Folklore podcasts were becoming popular, and every production company suddenly wanted authentic sound, not stock audio, not something from a library. They wanted real church bells, real rain on slate roofs, real footsteps in old buildings, real wind through old cemeteries. That was how I ended up in a village on the west coast of Ireland in late November, carrying 2 microphones, a field recorder, a tripod, 3 memory cards, and no idea what I had actually been hired to capture. The village was called Ballyrain. It was small enough that my taxi driver from Galway laughed when I said the name. "You have people there?" he asked. "Work. That is worse." He did not explain. Ballyrain sat near the edge of the Atlantic, on a stretch of coast where the land looked as if it had been broken apart by weather and never properly repaired. Low stone walls, Wet fields, black cliffs, white water smashing against rocks far below. The road into the village curved between hills and sheep pastures before dropping toward a harbour no larger than a parking lot. There was one pub, one inn, a closed post office, a shop that opened only when the owner felt like it, and a stone church standing above the village on a rise overlooking the sea. St. Orlas. I saw it before we reached the first houses. A low, dark church, made of rough grey stone, with a small graveyard enclosed by a leaning wall. It had no tower. That struck me immediately. The job request had said church bells. Historic bells. Rare acoustic phenomenon. Urgent recording needed before restoration work. But St. Orla's had no bell tower. No spear. No visible place for a bell to hang. Just the church, hunched against the wind like it had been waiting a long time for something unpleasant to pass. The taxi dropped me outside the inn. The building was old, whitewashed and narrow, with dark green shutters and a sign that read, "The Turnhouse." A woman in her 60s opened the door before I knocked. She had grey hair pinned at the back of her head and wore a wool cardigan over a black dress. Her face was kind in the way weathered places are kind, which means the kindness was real but had survived too much to be soft. "You are the man with the microphones," she said. "I suppose I am. Nathan Ward?" "Yes." She stepped aside. "I am Aileen." The inn smelled of peat smoke, furniture polish, and something baking. A small fire burned in a room off the hall. Rain ticked against the front windows. Eileen led me to a narrow desk where a registration book waited open. "Long journey?" "Long enough." "Tea?" "Yes, please." She gave a small nod, then looked toward my equipment bag. "You are here for St. Orla's." "That is right." "Who sent you?" A production company in Dublin. They said the parish requested a professional recording before work begins." At that, she made a sound that was not quite a laugh. "The parish requested many things over the years, but not this." She took a key from behind the desk and placed it in my palm. "Room 3, at the top of the stairs." Then she said it. "If you hear the bells under St. Orla's, do not count them." I waited for the smile. None came. "The bells under it?" I asked. Eileen looked directly at me. "You heard me. I thought the church had no tower." "It does not." "Then where are the bells?" "Under it." The reasonable part of me stepped in immediately. Maybe there was a buried chamber. Maybe an old bell storage vault. Maybe the bells had been lowered into a crypt during some conflict and never raised again. Ireland was full of old things and older stories. A subterranean bell chamber was unusual but not impossible. "Is that what I am recording?" I asked. Her expression changed slightly. "Not fear. Caution. You will ask Father Callan. He is expecting me. He knows you are here." That was not exactly yes. I took the key. Why should I not count them? For a moment, the rain against the glass seemed louder. Then Eileen said, "Because if you know how many times they have rung, you will know who they rang for." I did not know what to say to that. She turned away and went to make tea. My room looked over the harbour. It was small but warm, with a narrow bed, a wardrobe that leaned slightly to one side, a writing desk under the window, and a radiator that clanked like someone trapped inside it. I unpacked my gear and checked my phone. 1 bar, then none. The inn Wi-Fi worked badly enough to be more irritating than useless. I sent a message to the producer saying I had arrived. It did not send. Outside, rain moved across the village in pale sheets. Beyond the harbour, the sea looked black. St. Ola's stood on the hill to the east, its windows dark, its roof shining wet beneath the low grey sky. No tower, no bell, no movement. At 5, I went downstairs. Eileen had left tea and soda bread in the sitting room. An elderly man sat by the fire reading a newspaper that looked several days old. He glanced at me once and then ignored me with complete commitment. I asked Eileen how to find Father Callan. She pointed up the hill. Presbytery is beside the church. Is it a difficult walk? Everything is difficult in rain if you make a drama of it. That sounded fair. I put on my coat, left the larger equipment bag in my room, and took only a small recorder. The walk up to St. Ola's took less than 10 minutes. The road was steep and slick with wet leaves. By the time I reached the church gate, my shoes were dark with mud. The graveyard stones leaned in every direction, many too worn to read. The church itself was smaller than it had looked from below. Thick walls, narrow windows, a red wooden door with black iron hinges. The presbytery stood nearby, a square stone house with smoke coming from one chimney. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. A man's voice called from inside. Coming. Father Callan opened the door wearing a dark jumper, black trousers, and no collar. He was perhaps 50, though his face had the tired, folded quality of someone who had spent years listening to other people's worst moments. His hair was silver at the temples. His eyes were sharp. "You are Mr. Ward, Nathan." He looked past me toward the village. "You came in poor weather. I am starting to think that is just weather here." That almost got a smile. Almost he let me in. The presbytery smelled of damp books and old radiators. The hallway was lined with framed photographs of past priests, most of them stern, all of them dead. Father Callan led me into a small kitchen and put on the kettle without asking. "I will be honest," he said. "I advised against bringing someone in. For the recording? For the attention. The producer made it sound like the parish wanted documentation. The diocese wanted documentation. Insurance people like documentation. Restoration people like documentation. People in offices like anything that makes old problems seem manageable. And the bells are an old problem?" The kettle clicked off. He poured water into 2 mugs. An old fact. I sat at the kitchen table. Rain streaked the window. Beyond it, I could see part of the graveyard wall and the dark side of the church. Eileen said the bells are under the church. Father Callan's hand paused over the tea. "Eileen says too much. She told me not to count them. She said enough." I waited. He stirred his tea slowly. Then he sat down across from me. "St. Ola's used to have a tower," he said. "When? Long before anyone alive. The records disagree. Some say the tower fell in a storm. Some say it was pulled down. Some say there never was one, and that the oldest drawings were wrong. But the bells? There were 3 were. A gust of wind struck the window hard enough to make it rattle. Father Callan looked toward the church. "They are believed to be beneath the sanctuary." Believed? No one has seen them. How is that possible? Because no one who goes looking for them comes back well enough to describe what they found. He said it quietly. No performance. No ghost story voice. Just a tired man saying a thing he had decided not to soften. I set my mug down. What happened? Different things. A workman in the 60s broke through a stone slab during repairs and heard bells below him. After that, he stopped speaking for almost a year. A local boy opened the old floor hatch in the 80s and was found 3 miles away by the cliffs with his pockets full of grave soil. My predecessor tried to bless the lower chamber in 1999 and retired 2 weeks later. He lives with his sister now. He believes every door in her house opens downward. "And you still let restoration work happen?" His mouth tightened. "I did not let anything," the The roof is failing. Water is coming through the south wall. If we leave it, the church collapses. If we repair it, we disturb whatever the building has been sitting on for centuries. Whatever. Father Callan looked at me. You were hired to record sound, Mr. Ward. I suggest you record sound. That should have ended the conversation. It did not. Why did they ask for me before the work starts? Because the bells have been ringing more often. How often? 3 times this month. That is unusual. They had not rung in 7 years. The rain softened. For a few seconds, the kitchen was quiet. Then Father Callan said, "You will record from the nave. You will not go below the church. You will not touch the hatch behind the altar. You will not stay after the final bell if one rings while you are inside." What is the final bell? You will know. I am not sure that helps. It is not meant to help. It is meant to keep you alive. He stared at him. He looked exhausted. That made him harder to dismiss. Why bring me here at all? Father Callan's gaze dropped to his tea. Because if this place is going to start ringing again, someone outside the village should hear it once. That evening, I set up my equipment inside St. Ola's. The church interior was plain. Stone floor, wooden pews, whitewashed walls, a simple altar, a statue of St. Ola near the front, carved from dark wood, holding a small bell in one hand and a bundle of seagrass in the other. Her face had been smoothed by age or touch, maybe both. The air inside the church was colder than outside. Every sound seemed too close. My footsteps, the click of tripod legs, the soft handling noise of cables, even my breathing. Father Callan unlocked the door for me but did not stay. He stood at the entrance, watching me place microphones at the front and rear of the nave. "You know how to reach me," he said. "I do not have signal." "You will not need signal." I looked up. What does that mean? "If you need me, you will shout." Then he left. The door closed behind him. The sound echoed longer than it should have. I checked levels. Room tone. A faint draft near the altar. Rain against roof slate. Distant sea wind. The occasional creak of old wood. No bells. At 7:30, I began recording. For the first hour, nothing happened. I walked slowly through the church, capturing impulse responses, small sounds, silence. I recorded the door opening and closing. I recorded footsteps near the altar. I recorded the wind pressing at the narrow windows. At 8:42, I heard the first bell. Not loud, not at first. A low note that rose through the stone floor and passed into my body before it reached my ears. I froze near the front pew. The microphones clipped slightly. I adjusted the gain with shaking hands. The sound was not like any church bell I had recorded before. Most bells loom outward. The strike, the resonance, the air around them opening. This sound rose upward through mass. Stone, soil, bone. It vibrated in the soles of my feet. One note, long, deep, then silence. The second bell rang 40 seconds later. Different pitch, higher, but still below me. The little red lights on my recorder pulsed. I remembered Eileen's warning. Do not count them. I was already counting. 1, 2. I tried not to think the next number. That is impossible, of course. Tell a mind not to count, and it becomes a machine for counting. The third bell rang. I whispered, "Stop," not to the bells, to myself. A fourth note followed, then a fifth, each one different, each one resonating through the church as if the building itself were hollow beneath the floor. By the sixth, dust shook from the beams. By the seventh, the candles near the statue flickered, though I had not lit them. By the eighth, I heard something else beneath the bells. Voices. Low, layered, not singing, not speaking, waiting. The 9th bell rang, then silence. I stood very still. The recorder continued running. The waveforms on the screen flattened. 9 bells. I knew the number. I had failed the first warning in less than a minute. I turned toward the door. That was when I noticed the hatch. Behind the altar, partly hidden beneath an old woven cloth, the stone floor had opened. Not completely, only enough to show a black seam and a rusted iron ring raised upright from the slab. I had not touched it. I had not even seen it before. Cold air came from the crack. Then a voice rose from beneath the altar. Nathan. Not loud, not echoing, close, as if someone crouched just under the stone with their mouth near the gap. I backed away. The voice came again. Nathan Ward. It was a woman, older, not familiar, but intimate in the way strangers become in dreams when they already know things about you. I grabbed the recorder from the pew and started toward the door. The church stretched. I know how that sounds, but there is no better word. The aisle between the altar and the door became longer. Not visibly, not in a way I could measure, but every step carried me less distance than it should have. The door remained at the far end of the nave, red, closed, waiting. Behind me, the voice beneath the altar said, "You counted." I did not answer. "You heard 9? I walked faster. The pews on either side seemed to multiply in my peripheral vision, rows and rows where there had been perhaps 12. The recorder screen flickered. The file name changed. I had named the take St. Orla Room Tone. Now the screen read 9th. I stopped. That was a mistake. The voice said, "9th is not yours." The church door opened. Father Callan stood in the doorway, holding a lantern. Real flame, not a torch, not electric. A glass lantern with yellow fire shaking inside. "Nathan," he shouted, "do not turn around." My body had already begun to obey the wrong instinct. I stopped myself with my head half turned. Behind me, from the altar, came another voice. My mother's voice. "Nate." My mother had been dead for 5 years. I closed my eyes. Father Callan shouted, "Walk." My mother's voice came again, soft, confused. "Nate, where are you?" I walked. Every step felt like dragging myself through water. Father Callan kept speaking, not praying, not shouting scripture, just my name. "Forward, Nathan. Forward. Keep your eyes on me." My mother behind me said, "I do not like it down here." I nearly stopped. Father Callan's face changed. He knew what I had heard. "Not her," he said. "They use what grief leaves open." The bells rang again, all 3 at once. Not 9, not separate. One violent chord beneath the church. The pews rattled. The statue of St. Orla tilted in its niche. The hatch behind the altar scraped open another inch. Wind rose from below, carrying the smell of wet earth, salt, and something old enough to be beyond rot. I reached the door. Father Callan grabbed my coat and pulled me outside. The church slammed shut behind us. The rain had stopped. The graveyard was full of villagers. I had not heard them arrive. They stood between the leaning stones, dark figures facing the church. Eileen was among them. So was the old man from the inn. So were children in coats and boots, each holding an unlit candle. No one spoke. Father Callan did not let go of my coat. He dragged me through the churchyard gate and down the road toward the presbytery. Only when the church was behind us did he release me. "How many?" he asked. I did not answer. His face hardened. "How many did you hear?" "I was told not to count, but you did." I I looked toward the church. The villagers had begun to leave the graveyard, one by one. 9. Father Callan closed his eyes. Eileen, who had followed us from the gate, crossed herself. Not automatically, not like habit, like she had been struck. Who is 9th? I asked. Neither of them answered. Is that what the number means? Someone dies? Father Callan opened his eyes. Not dies. What then? Eileen looked toward the dark church. Returns. The word made no sense. Father Callan sent me back to the inn with Eileen and told me to stay in my room until morning. I did not argue. At the inn, Eileen gave me whiskey without asking. I do not usually drink when I am working. That night, I drank. The old man by the fire watched me over his newspaper. After a long silence, he said, "Was it 9? Eileen snapped, "Enough." He folded his paper slowly. People should know when the sea gives back what it took. The sea did not take him, Eileen said. The room went still. The old man looked at me. They're not here. No, he said softly. I suppose it did not. Eileen told me to go upstairs. I did, but I did not sleep. I sat at the desk in my room with the recorder in front of me, headphones on, listening to the file. That was the worst decision I made. At first, the recording sounded exactly as I remembered. Rain, room tone, my footsteps. Then, the first bell, even through headphones, the sound made my stomach tighten. The second, the third. I stopped counting, tried to, but I knew. The 9th bell faded. Then, beneath the silence, there was a whisper. I had not heard it in the church. It was almost buried under the noise floor. I amplified the file, filtered the low frequencies, boosted the mids. The whisper became clearer. A group of voices, layered, repeating something, not English, not Irish, as far as I could tell. Something older, or maybe just distorted by stone. Then one voice separated from the others. My mother's voice, not calling from behind me this time, speaking directly into the microphone. Nathan, why did you leave me where the bells could hear? I ripped the headphones off. The room felt suddenly too small. I stared at the recorder. It kept playing through the headphones, tinny and faint on the desk. My mother's voice continued. Nathan. Then another voice, Marley, young, Irish accent. I am not 9th. I froze. The voice repeated, I am not 9th. A knock came at my room door. 3 quick taps. I almost answered. Then I remembered, do not answer from below. That warning had not been given to me yet. But somehow, in that moment, I knew the knock had not come from the hallway. It had come from the floor. I looked down. The wooden boards near the foot of the bed were damp. A dark stain spread slowly between them. Salt water. The knock came again. Tap, tap, tap. From beneath the boards, a young man's voice whispered, tell them I am not 9th. I did not move. The voice became urgent. Tell Aileen. My room key sat on the desk. My coat hung by the door. The window showed only black glass and my own pale reflection. The floorboards creaked. Something pressed upward beneath them, not breaking through, just pressing, as if someone under the room had placed both hands against the wood and was trying to stand. Tell my mother, the voice said. That was when I understood. Aileen, the old man at the fire. People should know when the sea gives back what it took. I opened the door and ran downstairs. Eileen was in the hallway below, already awake, wearing a coat over her nightdress and holding a candle. The candle flame leaned toward the stairs, though there was no draft. You heard him, she said. It was not a question. Who? Her face trembled once, then steadied. My son. I swallowed. What happened to him? She looked past me toward the door. Nothing you can help by asking indoors. We went outside. The village was dark, except for a few windows and the weak silver light of the moon through broken clouds. Eileen led me down toward the harbor instead of up to the church. The road was slick. The sea was louder now. At the water's edge, waves slapped the stone quay. A small fishing boat rocked against its ropes. Eileen stopped beside a rusted bollard. "My son's name was Kieran," she said. "How long ago?" 17 years. "What happened?" "He went into St. Aula's after the bells rang." "Why?" "Because he heard his father." "Dead?" 3 months gone." The water rolled black against the harbor wall. Eileen wrapped her coat tighter around herself. "He was 19, too young to know grief lies, too old to be stopped by his mother." I said nothing. She continued. "The bells rang 8 times that night. Everyone knew what it meant. Someone would be called, someone still close enough to answer. Kieran went up before dawn. Father Callan's predecessor found the hatch open and the church full of seawater." "Seawater? The church is above the village," I said. "I know where the church is." Her voice sharpened, then softened. "They never found him. And now 9 bells mean he is coming back?" Eileen looked at the black water. "Maybe, but he said he is not 9th. Her face changed. "What?" The voice on the recording. "He said, I am not 9th. Eileen grabbed my arm. "Say that again." "He said he was not 9th. Behind us, from the hill above the village, a bell rang. 1. Eileen, let go of me. No. The second bell followed, and the third. Lights came on in houses across the village. The 4th bell rang. A dog began barking. The 5th, a door opened somewhere behind us. The 6th, Eileen whispered, "Do not count." But we both were. The 7th bell shook the harbor water. The 8th made the boat ropes snap tight against the quay. Then silence. Eileen stood perfectly still. 8, not 9. The church had rung 8. Her son had not been the 9th. Before either of us could speak, a 9th sound came from the sea. Not a bell, a knock, a hollow, wood against stone. We looked down. Something floated in the harbor. A coffin, small boat-shaped, black with age. It knocked gently against the quay. Inside it, wrapped in wet white cloth, lay a bell. Not large, handbell-sized, green with corrosion. Tied to its handle was a strip of cloth. Eileen stepped backward. I grabbed her before she could fall. On the cloth, written in dark brown letters, was one word, Chiren. The church bell rang again from the hill. Once, only once, an answer. Eileen began to sob. Not loudly, not with collapse. A deep, old grief breaking open after years of being held shut. The village gathered at the harbor in silence. Father Callan arrived last, coat unbuttoned, hair wet from rain or sweat. When he saw the coffin and the bell inside it, he turned white. "No one touch it," he said. An old man from the inn muttered, "If it comes back, it must be carried." Father Callan turned on him. "That is not your son." The old man's mouth shut. Eileen said, "It has his name." Father Callan looked at her with terrible gentleness. "So does the grave we never filled. That nearly destroyed her. I wished then that I had never come, that I had stayed in London recording train announcements or drunk actors for cheap podcasts. But the recorder was in my coat pocket, still on, still capturing everything. The sea, the villages, Eileen crying, Father Callan breathing hard, and beneath it all, very faintly, bells. Not from the church, from inside the little coffin. Father Callan heard them too. His eyes snapped to me. "Turn that off." I did. The moment I stopped recording, the bells in the coffin stopped. Everyone looked at me. That was how I became part of it. Not because I wanted to, because I had brought a device that could hear too well. Father Callan took me aside near the harbour steps. When you recorded in the church, did you play anything back inside the building? No. Did you amplify the voices? In my room. He closed his eyes. What did you hear? My mother. Then, Tiaran. Anything else? I hesitated. He saw it. What else? Voices under the bells. A lot of them. I could not understand the words. You do not need to understand a net to know when you are caught in one. What does that thing want? He looked toward the coffin. It wants procession. What does that mean? It wants to be carried to St. Ola's. And if it is, then it will be placed below again. That sounds like what it wants. It is, then do not do it. He laughed once. Itta, you still think refusal works the same here as it does elsewhere? Before I could answer, the church bells rang again. Not 8, not 9, a single continuous toll that did not fade. The villagers dropped their heads. Eileen went still beside the coffin. Father Callan swore under his breath. From the road above the harbour, a child's voice called, "Ma'am?" Eileen turned so fast I heard her neck crack. At the top of the road stood a young man, 19, maybe, dark hair, thin face, wet clothes clinging to him. He stood barefoot on the stones, seawater running from his sleeves. Eileen took one step toward him. Father Callan grabbed her. "Do not." The young man smiled. "Ma'am, I am cold." Eileen made a sound like an animal. I looked at the others. No one moved. No one breathed. The old man from the inn was crying silently. The young man lifted one hand. "Ma'am." Father Callan held Eileen with both arms now. She fought him. "My boy." She sobbed. "My boy." I raised my recorder without thinking. The screen lit. The meters moved. But the microphone did not pick up the young man's voice. It picked up bells. Not one. Many, layered inside the shape of his words. The young man looked at me. His expression changed. The smile remained, but the eyes flattened. "Nathan," he said. My recorder overloaded. The screen flashed red. Every dog in the village began barking at once. Father Callan shouted. Inside, people moved, fussed, doors opened, children were pulled away, candles were blown out. The villagers knew this part. They had practiced it in stories, if not in life. The young man at the top of the road tilted his head. Then he began walking down toward the harbour. Not quickly, not slowly, with the calm confidence of something that knew everyone's route was shorter than its own patience. Father Callan shoved Eileen toward two women. "Take her." "No!" she screamed. They dragged her away. I stood frozen. The young man looked exactly like someone's drowned son. And nothing like a person. Father Callan grabbed my sleeve. "Move." "Where?" "The church." "Are you insane?" "Yes, keep up." We ran uphill. Behind us, the young man laughed in Kieran's voice. The harbour bell inside the coffin began ringing. High, bright, insistent. We reached the churchyard gate, breathless. Father Callan unlocked the church door with shaking hands. Inside, the nave was dark. The hatch behind the altar stood open. Not cracked now, open. A square of blackness in the stone floor. Cold seawater lapped at the edges. I could hear it below. Waves. Under the church. Impossible. Father Callan went to the altar and pulled a wooden box from beneath it. Inside were candles, a book wrapped in cloth, and a small iron key. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Finishing what my predecessor started." "What is down there?" "Older grief than ours." "That is not an answer. It is the only one that matters." A knock came at the church door. Ons. Then Kieran's voice. Father? Father Callan closed his eyes. The voice continued. Father, I am cold. The priest whispered, Forgive me. Then he lifted the iron key and handed me the lantern from near the altar. You came to record the bells. I am done. No. You are going to let them hear themselves. I do not understand. He pointed at my recorder. Play back the 9th bell when I tell you. Why? Because if the dead can be called by bells, perhaps bells can be called by their own dead. That makes no sense. Neither does a church full of seawater on a hill. The knock came again, harder. The church door shuddered. Father Callan descended the steps through the hatch. I followed because the alternative was waiting alone in the nave for whatever stood outside wearing a dead boy's face. The steps were narrow and slick, stone walls pressed close on both sides. The smell of salt grew stronger. So did the sound of water. At the bottom was a passage that should not have fit beneath the church. It ran forward under low arches, the floor submerged in ankle-deep black water. The lantern light trembled on the surface. Set into the walls were niches. In each niche sat a bell, not 3, dozens. Small handbells, ship bells, church bells, cracked bells. Bells, green with age. Bells wrapped in hair, cloth, beads, rosaries, seaweed, and strips of paper bearing names. The bells of people, perhaps, or promises, or traps. At the end of the passage, the space opened into a circular chamber directly beneath the sanctuary. 3 great bells hung from black beams overhead. Not in a tower, under the church, each one larger than a man. The air around them shimmered with cold. Beneath the bells, the floor dropped away into water too deep to see the bottom. Something moved under it. Not a body, not a fish, a congregation. That is the only word I have. Shapes beneath the water, faces turning upward, hands drifting, mouths opening and closing without sound. Father Callan stepped to the edge. The bells above us began to vibrate, not ringing, preparing. He raised the book and began to speak in Irish. I did not understand a word, but the water did. It stirred. The shapes below gathered closer. From above, through the stone, I heard the church door break open. Footsteps crossed the nave, bare feet on stone. Kieran's voice drifted down. Ma'am? Father Callan spoke louder. The 3 great bells rang. The force drove me to my knees. The lantern nearly went out. My recorder flew from my hand and splashed into the shallow water. I grabbed it. Still working. Somehow, the screen glowed. The file from earlier was open. The 9th bell recording. Father Callan looked at me. Now. I pressed play. The recorded bell emerged from the small speaker, thin, distorted, pathetic compared to the real bells above us. But the chamber reacted. Every small bell in every wall niche began to tremble, then ring, one after another. A storm of bells under the church. The water below churned. The faces beneath it opened their mouths. The sound that came out was not a scream. It was names, hundreds of names, thousands, called all at once. Father Callan shouted over them. Again, I played the file louder. The 9th bell sounded. Then my mother's recorded voice came through. Nathan, why did you leave me where the bells could hear? The chamber went silent. Even the water stopped moving. Father Callan turned toward me slowly. My mother's voice played again from the recorder, but now another voice spoke beneath hers. Chiaran, I am not 9th. Then another, a woman. I was 7th. A man. I was 3rd. A child. I was 1st. The recorder began playing voices I had never recorded. one after another, all saying what number they were not. Not ninth, not eighth, not fifth, not first. The water rose. Father Callan shouted, but I could not hear him. The 3 great bells above us swung without ropes. The first struck, then the second, then the third. I understood suddenly. The bells were not counting people. People were counting themselves. Every person called down here had been given a number, a place in the village's grief, a place in whatever old order St. Aula's kept below the church. And Kieran had refused his number, or had been given the wrong one. The young man appeared at the entrance to the chamber, wet, barefoot, smiling. Ciaran's face, something else's eyes. He looked at the recorder in my hand. That is not yours, he said. Father Callan stepped between us. No one is yours. The thing wearing Ciaran laughed. Every bell in the chamber laughed with it. Then Eileen's voice called from behind the thing. My son. It turned. Eileen stood in the passage, soaked from rain, hair loose, face white with terror and grief. She had followed us. Of course she had. The thing softened. Ma'am. Eileen stepped closer. Father Callan shouted, Eileen, no. She ignored him. She walked past the bells in the walls, past the hanging names, through black water, toward the shape of her son. The thing opened its arms. I thought she would embrace it. Instead, Eileen pulled a small handbell from inside her coat, the one from the coffin, the bell with Kieran's name tied to its handle. She raised it. The thing's smile vanished. Mum? Eileen rang the bell once. A clear, small sound. Nothing like the great bells. Nothing like the underground thunder. A mother calling one child. The thing wearing Kieran staggered, its face blurred. For the first time I saw the wrongness fully. Not a monster, not a corpse. A gap, a hollow in the shape of a person, filled with voices and seawater and need. Eileen rang the bell again. Kieran, she said, come away from it. The water below us erupted. Hands rose. The 3 great bells swung madly. Father Callan grabbed the nearest beam to stay upright. I pressed record without meaning to. Eileen rang the bell a 3rd time. The thing collapsed. Not physically. Its outline failed. For a moment, there was a young man standing there, wet and terrified, looking 19 and no older. He saw Eileen. His lips trembled. Ma'am, he whispered. Then the water behind him opened. Not like waves, like a mouth. Father Callan shouted something. Eileen moved faster than I thought possible. She threw the small bell to me. Then she grabbed her son and pulled him toward her. The water took them both. No scream, no struggle. They were simply gone. The great bells stopped. The chamber fell silent. The water lowered. The little bells in the walls hung still. Father Callan stood frozen at the edge, face slack with horror. I looked down at the handbell Eileen had thrown me. The cloth tied to its handle no longer said Kieran. It said Eileen. We climbed out just before dawn. The church was empty. The broken front door hung open. The villagers waited outside in the graveyard. No one asked where Eileen was. They knew. The old man from the inn took the handbell from me with shaking hands and carried it into the church. Father Callan let him. At sunrise, the bells under St. Aula's rang once. Only once. A low, deep note that rolled through the village and out across the sea. The old man bowed his head. She brought him home, he said. I left Ballyrain that afternoon. No one stopped me. No one asked for the recordings. Father Callan walked me to the taxi. Before I got in, he said, you should delete what you captured. I will. You will not. He was right. I did not. For months, I told myself I kept the files because they were evidence. Then because they were unique. Then because no one would believe me otherwise. The truth is uglier. I kept listening because sometimes under the bells I thought I could hear my mother. Not clearly, not enough to understand, just enough to make grief curious. That is how it starts. I know that now. 3 months after Ballyrain, I opened the recording in my London flat and found a new track on the memory card. I had not created it. It was labeled 10th. The file was 9 seconds long. At first, silence. Then, one bell. Not from St. Ola's. Closer. Small. Handheld. After it, Eileen's voice whispered, "Nathan, do not make them learn another name." I deleted the file. Then I deleted every backup, every project folder, every raw take, every waveform, every export. I formatted the memory cards. I sold the microphones. I stopped recording churches. I stopped recording anything after dark. That should have been the end. But last winter, I moved into a new flat in South London. On the first night, while unpacking boxes, I found something in the kitchen cupboard. A small handbell, green with age, wet to the touch. Tied to its handle was a strip of cloth, blank, no name. Not yet. I threw it into the Thames. I watched it sink. 3 nights later, at 3:09 in the morning, I woke to the sound of a bell beneath my floorboards. One, then another, then another. I pressed my hands over my ears. I did not count. I did not move. From under the floor, my mother's voice whispered, "Nate?" I did not answer. The bell rang again. I squeezed my eyes shut. Do not count. Do not answer. Do not count. Do not answer. Then a different voice joined hers. Elaine, soft, urgent, almost lost beneath the bell. "Nathan, leave before you know which one is yours." I left the flat barefoot. I spent the rest of the night on a bus, riding until morning because I could not think of anywhere else to go. When I came back, the floor was dry. No bell, no water, no sign of anything beneath the boards. But on the kitchen table sat my field recorder, the one I had thrown away months earlier. Its screen was cracked. Its battery was dead. Still, when I touched it, the speaker hissed. One final sound came through. Not a bell, not my mother, not Aileen. A crowd of voices under stone, whispering together. 10th is listening. I have not slept through a night since. And if I ever hear bells now, real bells, wedding bells, church bells, handbells in markets, anything, I walk away before the last note fades. People think bells are meant to call the living to prayer. Maybe some are, but some bells are older than prayer. Some were made to call what sank, what was buried, what was promised, what was never properly mourned. And if you ever visit a coastal village in Ireland and someone tells you not to count the bells under the church, believe them. Because the first bell is only a sound, the second is only a warning. But by the time you know the number, something beneath the floor may already know your name. Story 3. The orchard where no one ate the apples. No one in the village ate the apples. That was the first thing I noticed. Not because the orchard was hidden. It was not. It stood right above the village, spread across the hillside like a dark green wound, rows and rows of old apple trees leaning under the weight of fruit. Red apples, gold apples, small, bitter-looking green ones. Enough fruit to feed every house for months. And yet, every morning, I watched villagers walk past the fallen apples without touching them. Children stepped around them. Dogs sniffed them and backed away. Old women swept them from doorsteps with long-handled brooms and pushed them into the gutter as if they were dead rats. No one picked them up. No one cooked them. No one pressed cider. No one even looked hungry when the branches bowed low over the stone walls. The apples rotted where they fell, and every night, after sunset, something climbed down from the orchard and gathered the ones the village had left behind. My name is Mara Ellis. I am a food historian, which sounds more romantic than it is. Most of my work involves archives, kitchen inventories, handwritten recipes, old agricultural records, monastery notes, and local food traditions that survive, mainly because grandmothers are harder to erase than empires. I had been working on a book about regional harvest customs in Central Europe when I found a footnote in a 19th century travel diary. It mentioned a village in the foothills of the Carpathians where apples were grown for the dead. That was the phrase. Not apples offered to the dead. Not apples placed on graves. Apples grown for the dead. The diary gave only a partial name. Velmora, no country listed. No proper coordinates. Just the line about a harvest market, an orchard above the village, and a local rule. No living mouth should take the fruit after the first spell of autumn. That was exactly the kind of strange detail publishers loved. So I went looking. It took 3 months of emails, old maps, language forums, and one very patient archivist in Prague before I found a likely match. Velmora, a small village in a mountain valley near the borderlands, old enough to have changed countries without moving an inch. There were barely any photographs online. One showed a church with a wooden spire. One showed a narrow street of whitewashed houses. One showed the orchard. That was the image that made me book the trip. The trees were ancient, not picturesque, ancien, not tourist, brochure ancien. They looked burdened. Twisted trunks, heavy branches, dark leaves. The kind of trees that seemed less planted than negotiated with. I arrived in late October. The bus dropped me at a bend in the road 2 kilometers below the village because the driver said the upper lane was too narrow for his vehicle. He did not seem sorry about that. He lifted my suitcase from the luggage hold, set it in the wet gravel, and pointed uphill. Velmora, he said. Is there a taxi? He laughed once, not unkindly. No. Then he shut the luggage door, climbed back into the bus, and drove away. The road climbed through damp forest. Brown leaves stuck to my boots. Mist hung low between the trees. The air smelled of wet bark, mushrooms, and smoke. Halfway up, I saw the first apple. It lay in the middle of the road, perfectly red, round, polished by rain. No brise, no wormhole, no bite. It looked placed there. I stepped around it. A few yards later, there were 3 more, then 7. Then the road curved, the forest opened, and Velmora appeared. The village sat in a shallow bowl beneath the hills. White houses with steep roofs, stone walls, a little church, a square with a dry well at the center, and, above everything, climbing the slope behind the village, the orchard. It was much larger than the photograph had suggested. Hundreds of trees, maybe more. They filled the hillside from the church wall to the edge of the forest. Their branches interlocked in places, forming dark tunnels beneath the leaves. The apples glowed in the mist, like small lanterns. I stood there too long, looking at them, long enough for someone to notice. An old man pushing a wheelbarrow stopped beside a gate below the church. He looked at me, then at the orchard, then back at me. "You are not here for fruit," he said in accented English. It was not a question. "I am here for research." "That is worse," he continued, pushing the wheelbarrow. That became my welcome to Velmora. I had arranged to stay at the only guest house in the village, a plain 2-story building run by a woman named Anya Kral. She was in her 50s, broad-shouldered, with iron-grey hair cut short and hands rough from work. She spoke good English, but used it sparingly, as though too many words were an unnecessary expense. "You are Miss Ellis," she said when I arrived. "Mara, please." She nodded once, not agreeing exactly. You stay 3 nights. If that is still all right. You paid. That seemed to settle the matter. My room was small and very clean. White walls, wooden bed, a desk under a square window, a wardrobe that smelled of cedar. From the window, I could see the orchard. Anja noticed me, looking. You should close curtains before dusk, she said. Why? Because after dusk, the orchard looks back. I turned, expecting a smile. There was none. I am here to study the orchard custom, I said carefully. I know. Would you be willing to talk to me about it? No. Is there someone who would? No one with sense. She placed a folded towel on the bed. Dinner at 6. Do not bring apples inside. I do not have any apples. Good. Then she left. At dinner, I sat alone at a table near the stove, while Anja served potato soup, dark bread, pickled cabbage, and roasted mushrooms. No apple, no cider, no yam. 3 local men sat at another table, speaking quietly in a language I only partly understood. They glanced at me once, then continued their conversation without lowering their voices. That usually meant either they did not care if I understood, or they were certain I did not. I caught one word, sad, not English sad, a local word that appeared in a few old harvest texts I had read. It meant seed, or child, or debt, depending on context. That caught my attention. After dinner, I took out my notebook. Anya appeared beside me almost instantly. You write what? Notice about us, about the orchard. She looked toward the front windows. The curtains were already closed. What do you think you know? I opened my notebook to the footnote I had copied. There was a tradition here involving apples grown for the dead. Anja's face did not change. That is what your book says? A travel diary, 19th century. Travelers hear one thing and write a prettier thing. What should it say? She stood silent for long enough that I thought she would not answer. Then she said, the apples are not grown for the dead. They grow because of them. Before I could ask what that meant, the church bell rang once. The sound moved through the room with surprising force. The men at the other table stopped talking. Anya reached over and closed my notebook. Go upstairs, she said. It is only 7. Go upstairs. The men stood, not hurriedly, but together. Anja went to the front door and slid a heavy wooden bar into place. Then another across the back door. I stood slowly. What happens after the bell? No one answered. The bell rang a second time. One of the men crossed himself. Another spat lightly into the fireplace. Anja looked at me. Upstairs. I went, not because I wanted to, because every person in the room had become suddenly completely serious, and I had been in enough villages to know when an outsider should stop performing curiosity. In my room, I closed the curtains as instructed, then opened them a finger width. The village square lay below, empty in the cold blue dark. No one outside, no dogs, no lights, except a few behind shutters. Above the church, the orchard shifted in the wind. At first, that was all. Branches moving, leaves trembling, apples hanging. Then something fell. One apple, then another, then dozens. Soft thuds rolled down the hillside. A slow rain of fruit dropping from the trees after dark. But there was no wind strong enough to shake them loose. The apples fell in waves, tree by tree, as if something unseen walked through the orchard, touching each trunk. I leaned closer to the glass. In the lane below the guest house, one apple rolled out of the darkness and stopped beneath a street lamp. Perfect red, unbruised. A door opened somewhere across the square, only a crack. Someone whispered sharply. The door closed. Then, From beneath the orchard wall, figures emerged. I could not see them clearly at first. The fog made them long and thin. They moved bent forward, close to the ground, with slow, careful gestures, gathering the fallen apples, Anna by Anna. Their backs were covered in dark cloth or hair. Their hands were pale, too pale. One of them paused near the church wall and lifted its head. I dropped the curtain. My heart beat hard in my throat. A minute passed, then a soft tap came at the window. I did not move. Another tap, small, precise, like someone touching the glass with one fingernail. I stepped back. The curtain bulged inward slightly, as if pushed by a breeze from outside. Then something rolled from beneath it and dropped onto the floorboards. An apple, red, wet with mist, perfect. It came to rest beside my boot. I looked at the closed window. The latch was shut, the glass unbroken. The curtain hung still. The apple sat on the floor between me and the bed. I wanted to pick it up. That was the first wrong thing. Not curiosity, desire, sudden and physical. The smell hit me all at once. Sweet, sharp, warm. Not like ordinary apples. Like pastry cooling in a childhood kitchen. Like cider at a winter market. Like every safe autumn memory I had ever had, concentrated into one piece of fruit. My mouth watered. I hated that. I backed toward the door, opened it, and called softly. Anya, no answer. I called again. A floorboard creaked below. Then Anja's voice came from the stairwell. Do not touch it. I opened my door wider. She stood on the landing below, holding a candle. Her face looked older in the flame. There is an apple in my room. I know. How did it get in? She climbed the stairs slowly. The orchard gives one to strangers. Why? To see if they are hungry. I am not. Anja looked at my face. You are. I stepped away from the apple. She entered the room carrying a small iron shovel, the kind used for fireplaces. Without touching the fruit with her hands, she scooped it up and placed it in a metal bowl. Then she sprinkled salt over it. The apple split, not cut, split. A crack opened from stem to base. Inside, instead of white flesh and seeds, there was hair, fine, pale hair coiled tightly within the fruit. I gagged. Anja covered the bowl with a cloth. What is that? A warning? That is not an answer. No, she said. It is not. She carried the bowl to the door. Before leaving, she looked at me. If you hear chewing in the walls, sleep through it. I did not sleep. Around midnight, I heard it. A slow, wet chewing sound from behind the walls. Not Micha. Not pipes. Mouths. Many mouths. Eating carefully, patiently, all around the room. At some point before dawn, I must have passed out from exhaustion because I woke to pale light behind the curtains and someone knocking on my door. Anya entered with coffee. She glanced once at the floor where the apple had been. You did well. I did not do anything. That is often the best thing. After breakfast, I went into the village square with my notebook, recorder, and camera. No one wanted to talk. The old man with the wheelbarrow ignored me. A young woman sweeping her front step went inside when she saw me. 2 children stopped playing when I approached and stared at my hands, as if checking whether I had stolen something. The orchard was visible from everywhere. Above the roofs, behind the church, beyond the walls. It watched the village the way a lake watches a drowning. At 10, I met the school teacher. His name was Pavel Hrusk. He was in his early 40s, thin, neat, and spoke English with the careful precision of someone who had learned it from books and then resented every tourist who forced him to use it. He found me standing near the dry well. You are the historian. I am trying to be. You should try elsewhere. I have heard that a lot since arriving. Then you are not listening. He turned to leave. I said, I found a reference to apples grown for the dead. That stopped him. Slowly, he turned back. Where? A travel diary from 1889. His mouth tightened. Outsiders have always loved misunderstanding us. Then help me understand. He looked toward the guest house. Anja allows you to stay? Yes. Then she has more patience than I do. He started walking. After a moment, I followed. We climbed the lane toward the church. The orchard wall ran behind it, built of grey stones mottled with lichen. Apples lay scattered along its base. None bruised, none worm-eaten, none touched by birds. Pavel stopped beside the churchyard gate. What did Anya tell you? That the apples grow because of the dead. He gave a grim smile. She gave you the polite version. What is the impolite version? He looked at the orchard. The trees feed on what the village owes. Owls? To whom? To what was here before the village. That sounds like folklore. It is folklore. He met my eyes. That does not make it false. The church door opened behind us. A priest stepped out. He was young, younger than I expected, maybe 30. Dark-haired, narrow-faced, wearing a black coat over clerical clothing. He saw Pavel and immediately looked displeased. Mr. Husk, he said. Father Matei. Then the priest looked at me. You are the woman writing about the orchard. Yes, Mara Ellis. You should write that it is private land and no visitor should enter. I was not planning to trespass. That is wise. Pavel laughed softly. Father Mate did not look at him. The priest stepped closer to me. The orchard is not a custom, not a festival, not a market story. It is not for a book. I understand your concern. No, he said. You do not. That is why you came. He went back into the church and shut the door. Pavel watched him go. He is new, he said. To the village? 3 years. That is new? For Velmora? Yes. Does he believe in it? He believes. Belief is the problem. And you? Pavel bent down, picked up a fallen apple by its stem, and held it out to me. The fruit was flawless, beautiful. Do you want it? I stepped back. He nodded. Now you believe enough. He set the apple gently on top of the wall. Come. He led me around the churchyard to a narrow path that climbed beside the orchard wall. We did not enter the orchard. We only walked along its edge. The trees beyond the wall were older than any fruit trees I had seen. Their trunks twisted around themselves, bark black and deeply ridged. Many branches were propped up by wooden supports. Strips of cloth hung from some of them, white, red, black, faded by weather. Offerings? I asked. Names. I looked closer. The cloth strips had writing on them. Some fresh, some barely legible. Names, dates. A few had small locks of hair tied into them. Memorials? Pavel shook his head. Receipts. The word chilled me. For what? He looked at the trees. For another year. We reached a small gate in the wall. It was locked with a thick iron chain. Above it hung a wooden sign painted in 3 languages, including English. Do not enter the orchard. Do not eat the fruit. Do not carry seeds beyond the wall. I took a picture. Pavel said, at the first bell of autumn, the orchard belongs to them until spring. Them? He looked at me as though disappointed. You saw the gatherers last night. I lowered my camera. What are they? No one knows. No one living. Human? Sometimes. The path ended at a rise overlooking the village. From there, I could see the whole valley. The houses, the church, the guest house, the dry well, the orchard, behind everything. A village living under trees no one dared to harvest. Pavel said, people think a curse is a punishment. That is not always true. Sometimes a curse is an agreement that has outlived the people who made it. What agreement? His expression darkened. Long ago, the valley starved. That is the story. Bad harvest, early frost, children dying. The old village was lower, near the stream. They planted, but nothing grew. Then a woman came from the forest and offered fruit. What woman? He did not answer directly. The old stories call her the graft mother. I wrote that down. Pavel watched my pen. She gave them trees that would fruit every year, no matter weather, no matter soil. The village would survive. And in exchange, the first seeds belonged to her. I waited. He looked at me. You understand, seed can mean more than seed. I thought of the word I had overheard the night before. Sad, seed, child, debt. The valley seemed colder. Children, firstborn, some say. Others say only the children who would have died in famine anyway. People soften stories when they need to keep telling them. And now we do not eat the apples, so there are no seeds to owe. Pavel nodded once. No living mouth breaks the fruit. No living body carries the seed. The orchard drops what it must. The gatherers take what falls. The village endures. That sounds impossible. It is. And yet here we are. Below us, the church bell rang once. Pavel's face changed. That was not for time. What was it for? He looked toward the village. Someone has entered the orchard. We ran down the path. For a school teacher, Pavel moved fast. By the time we reached the church, people had come out of their houses. Anya stood in the lane below the guest house, looking up toward the orchard wall. Father Mate came from the church, carrying a ring of keys. His face was pale with anger. 2 teenage boys stood near the orchard gate. One was crying. The other had blood on his sleeve. Pavel grabbed the crying boy by the shoulders. Where is Luca? The boy pointed toward the locked gate. He went in. Why? The boy looked at Father Matej. He said Father told him it was superstition. Everyone turned toward the priest. Father Matej's jaw tightened. I told the confirmation class they should not fear fruit. The old man with the wheelbarrow spat on the ground. You are a fool in a collar. The priest ignored him and unlocked the gate. Anja stepped forward. Do not. A boy is inside. And you think you can bring him out because you have keys? Father Matej opened the gate. The metal hinges groaned. A wind came from the orchard, not outward, inward, pulling at our coats. The trees beyond the gate looked darker than they had from the path. The apples hanging from the branches were still, too still. No birds, no insects, no sound at all. The priest stepped inside. Pavel cursed and followed. So did Anya. No one else moved. I should have stayed with them. I did not. The orchard air changed the moment I crossed the gate. Outside, the village smelled of smoke and wet stone. Inside, everything smelled sweet, overripe fruit, fermenting cider, autumn leaves, freshly turned soil. It was pleasant for about 3 seconds. Then it became suffocating. The trees grew close together. Roads from outside became confusion inside. The path split into several narrow tracks, all scattered with fallen apples. Not rotting here. Perfect. Red, gold, green, shining on the dark ground. Do not step on them, Anya said. I looked down quickly. 1 apple lay inches from my boot. Father Mate called, Luca! No answer. Pavel shouted the boy's name in the local language. The orchard swallowed it. No echo. No birds startled from branches. Only silence. We moved deeper. The cloth strips hanging from trees brushed our shoulders. Names. So many names. Some looked decades old. Some looked new enough that the ink had not fully faded. I saw one strip tied low on a branch. Luca, today's date. I stopped. Pavel. He turned. I pointed. His face went grey. Father Matej saw it too. That could have been written earlier, he said. No one answered him. An apple dropped from a branch above us. It landed at his feet without bruising. The priest stepped back. Anja whispered, "Do not touch what falls for you." The apple split open by itself. Cleanly, from inside came a sound. A child laughing. Father Matej made the sign of the cross. Anja looked at him with contempt. Now, the laughter turned into crying. Distant, muffled. Luca, we followed the sound. The orchard grew denser. The trees leaned over us, branches crossing overhead until the sky disappeared. Roots rose from the soil like knuckles. Apples hung at face height, close enough to brush my cheek. One touched my sleeve. The fabric darkened instantly with juice. The smell made my stomach clench with hunger. I had eaten breakfast. It did not matter. Every apple looked like the answer to a question my body had been asking all my life. I clenched my hands into fists. Anja noticed. Breathe through your mouth. Then stop wanting. I am trying. That is not the same. Ahead, we reached a clearing. At its center stood the oldest tree in the orchard. It was enormous. Not tall, wide. The trunk had split into several twisting columns that rejoined higher up, forming a hollow dark enough for a person to stand inside. Hundreds of cloth names hung from its branches. Some were tied to bones. Small bones. Animal, I hoped. At the base of the tree sat Luca. He was maybe 14. Dark hair, thin shoulders, his school shirt torn, one shoe missing, his back pressed to the trunk. He held an apple in both hands, untouched, but close to his mouth. Pavel spoke softly. Luca. The boy looked up. His eyes were unfocused. They said, "I can take it," he whispered. "And you took one step. Put it down." Luca shook his head. They said it was already mine. Father Matej moved forward. "Luca, listen to me. Come here." The branches above us shifted. No wind, just movement. Every apple on the old tree turned slightly on its stem, as if looking at the priest. He stopped. Luca smiled. Not like himself, like someone had placed a smile on him from behind. Father said we should not be afraid. Anya hissed something under her breath. The boy lifted the apple. Pavel lunged. Too late. Luca bit into it. The sound was impossibly loud, crisp, wet, final. Every tree in the orchard dropped its fruit at once. The ground shook with impact. Apples struck the soil, roots, leaves, and our shoulders. Thousands of them falling in a single terrible rain. Father Matej cried out and covered his head. Pavel dragged Luca away from the tree. The boy convulsed. The bitten apple rolled from his hand. Inside the bite, I saw no white flesh, only seeds. Black seeds packed together like insects. Luca choked. Anja forced his mouth open. Seeds spilled out. Dozens, then more. Far more than any apple could contain. They poured from between his teeth, wet and black, pattering onto the leaves. Pavel shouted his name. The boy's eyes rolled upward. From the hollow in the tree trunk, something breathed. A long, satisfied inhale. Anja grabbed the front of Luca's shirt, spit all of it out. The boy gagged. More seeds came, then one red thread, thin, wet, moving. Anya recoiled. The thread slid from Luca's mouth and dropped to the ground. It twitched once, then burrowed into the soil. The old tree creaked. A woman's voice spoke from inside the hollow trunk. First seed taken. Father Matej whispered, "God help us." the voice answered. He was not here when we planted. Then the gatherers came. They emerged from between the trees without sound. The same bent figures I had seen from my window. Close up, they were worse. Their bodies were wrapped in dark layers of cloth, bark, and old leaves. Their faces were hidden under masks made from dried apple skin, stitched into human shapes. Their hands were pale, long-fingered, and stained brown at the nails. Each carried a basket. They did not look at us. They looked at Luca. Pavel lifted the boy into his arms. We are leaving. Anya backed toward the path. No running. The gatherers tilted their heads. Father Mate raised his cross. One gatherer reached out and gently closed his fingers around it. The cross blackened. The priest dropped it with a cry. The woman's voice in the tree said, "The fruit was eaten." Anya shouted back, "By a child misled." The orchard went still. Every gatherer turned toward Father Matesh. The priest froze. His lips moved silently. The woman's voice said, "Then the mouth that invited hunger may answer." The apples on the ground began to roll. All of them, slowly at first, then faster, not downhill, toward us. Thousands of apples rolling across leaves and roots, gathering at Father Matej's feet. He backed away. The apples followed. Pavel shouted, "Move!" We ran then. Anja's rule broke, because every rule had already broken. Pavel carried Luca. I followed with Anya. Father Matej stumbled behind us, apples striking his shoes, his ankles piling against his legs. He fell once. I turned to help. Anya grabbed my arm. "No, he will die," he offered. That coldness shocked me. Then I saw Father Mate rise. For a moment, relief. Then he opened his mouth. Apple blossoms poured out, white petals, pink veins, thousands of them, spilling down his black coat. His eyes were wide and wet. He reached toward us. From between his teeth, a sapling began to grow. I turned away. I still hear the sound he made sometimes. Not a scream, not exactly, more like roots tearing cloth. We reached the orchard gate just as the church bell rang again. Villagers pulled us through. The old man slammed the gate shut and wrapped the chain around it with shaking hands. Inside the orchard, Father Matej stood among the trees, or what had been Father Matej. His body arched backward. Branches rose from his mouth, ears, sleeves, and collar. Apples swelled along them, small and green. His hands opened and closed once, then became twigs. The gatherers surrounded him, not attacking, harvesting. Anya took Luca from Pavel and laid him on the road. The boy was alive, barely. His lips were stained black. Seeds clung to his tongue. The village women came with salt water, wool blankets, and a knife heated in a candle flame. They worked without speaking. They scraped seeds from his mouth, washed his gums, cut the bitten skin from his lower lip while his mother sobbed nearby. I stood uselessly, with my notebook in my hand and the sweet smell of apples still stuck in my throat. At dusk, Luca opened his eyes. His mother whispered his name. He looked at her, then past her, toward the orchard, and said, in a woman's voice, "Root not yet set." The women began praying. Anja looked at me. "Now you will leave." I said, "What about him? If he does not sleep for 3 nights, he may live. And if he sleeps?" She looked toward the orchard wall. "Then he will dream soil." That night, no one in Velmora slept. Not really. The entire village gathered in the schoolhouse because it was the farthest building from the orchard. Luca lay on a table in the center of the room, while women kept him awake with bitter tea, salt on his tongue, and needles pressed lightly into his fingertips whenever his eyes closed. No one objected. Not his mother, not Pavel, Not even Luca. Outside, apples rolled through the streets. All night, we heard them, soft bumps against doors, against walls, against the schoolhouse steps. Once, something scratched at the window. A child began to cry. Anja blew out the lamps, and we sat in darkness until the scratching stopped. In that dark, Pavel sat beside me. "You have enough for your book now?" I could not answer. He nodded. Outsiders always want old customs to mean something beautiful. Community, memory, ancestors, a harvest. They forget fear is also tradition. I did not want this. "No," he said, "but you wanted the door opened." I thought of Father Mate, of the sapling in his mouth, of the old tree breathing. "Will the orchard stop now?" Pavel laughed, without humor. "It stopped for one boy, for one night. What happens to Father Mate? The village will say he left. And the church? We will request another priest." "You cannot be serious." "We always request another priest." Near dawn, Luca began to cough. Everyone in the room went silent. His mother held him down. Anya opened his mouth. One final seed lay under his tongue. Small, black, split down the middle. Inside, a pale root curled like a sleeping worm. Anja took iron tweezers from her apron pocket and removed it carefully. The moment it left his mouth, every apple outside stopped rolling. Silence fell over the village. True silence, the kind that arrives after something has finished deciding. Luca slept then. No one woke him. At sunrise, the orchard gate stood open. Not broken, open. Beyond it, the trees were bare. No apples, no leaves, only branches black against the grey sky. At the base of the oldest tree, where Father Madic had fallen, there was a new sapling, thin, green, young. Tied to it with white cloth was a name, Mate. No one said anything. The villagers closed the gate. The old man locked the chain, and life resumed with the terrifying efficiency of people who have survived by refusing to fall apart. I left that afternoon. Anja drove me to the bus stop herself in an old truck that smelled of petrol, wool, and onions. My suitcase sat between us. Neither of us spoke for most of the drive. At the bend where the bus had left me 2 days before, she stopped. "You will write?" she asked. "I do not know." "Yes, you do." I looked at her. "What should I say? For your readers? Say the village has old apple customs. Say locals avoid eating the fruit after autumn bell. Say it symbolizes respect for ancestors." That would be a lie. That would be safer. She took something from her coat pocket. A small cloth bag tied with string. My whole body went cold. "No." She placed it on the dashboard, not in my hand. "It is salt from the village. Keep it near your door until spring. I do not want anything from here. You brought something already." "What?" She looked at me then, with pity. "Want?" The bus came 10 minutes later. I did not look back at Velmora as we drove away. I told myself I would delete the photos, destroy the notes, forget the orchard, forget the apples, forget Father Mate blooming in the dark. But when I returned home, my apartment smelled faintly of cider. I searched everywhere: kitchen, bins, coat pockets, suitcase, nothing. Then I opened my notebook. Pressed between 2 pages was an apple seed, black, glossy, still wet. I burned the page in the sink, then the whole notebook, then the clothes I had worn in the orchard. For a while, that seemed enough. Winter passed. No apples, no smells, no dreams. In spring, I received an email from an academic journal asking if I would submit an essay on Central European harvest rituals. I almost declined. Then I thought of money. rant, career, all the ordinary little hungers that make people stupid. I wrote the safe version. New names, no precise location, no mention of Father Mate, no gatherers, no seeds in Luca's mouth. I described the orchard as a symbolic boundary between living and dead. I wrote that avoiding the apples after the autumn bell represented communal restraint. I even used the word folklore like a shield. The essay was published in September. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at my flat. No return address. Inside was a single apple, red, perfect, nestled in straw. Under it was a strip of white cloth with my name written on it, Mara Ellis. I did not touch the apple. I carried the entire box outside with oven gloves and threw it into a dumpster behind my building. That night, at sunset, I heard something rolling across my kitchen floor. One apple, then another, then dozens. I turned on the light. The floor was empty, but the smell of cider filled the room. Sweet, sharp, hungry. I left the flat and stayed with a friend for 3 weeks. When I came back, the smell was gone. On my kitchen table sat the cloth bag of salt Anya had given me. I was certain I had thrown it away. The string had been untied. The salt was scattered in a circle. At the center of the circle lay one black seed, split open, empty. I moved after that. Then again, it does not help. Every autumn, after the first cold rain, apples appear near me. One on a train seat, one beneath a hotel bed, one in the bottom of a grocery bag when I know I did not buy any. I never touch them. I never cut them open. I never throw them away with bare hands. But I smell them, especially at night. Last October, I woke to chewing in the walls. Slow, wet, many mouths. I lay perfectly still until morning, with both hands over my own mouth because I was afraid of what might come out if I opened it. At dawn, the sound stopped. On the wall above my bed, written in something dark and sticky, were 4 words. Route not yet set. I called Anya. I do not know how the call went through. I had no number for her. I only picked up my phone and heard it ringing. When she answered, she sounded unsurprised. I found a seed, I said. No, she replied. A seed found you. What do I do? Do not plant it. I did not. Do not write its name. I do not know its name. A pause. Then Anja said, that is why it follows. The call ended. I have not written about Velmora since. Not in articles, not in books, not in notes. This is the first time I have told the story. And even now, I will not tell you where the village is. If you go looking, I hope you fail. If you find a road lined with apples, turn back. If you see a village under an orchard where no one eats the fruit, do not ask why. If someone offers you bread, eat it. If someone offers you salt, keep it. But if an apple rolls to your feet after sunset, do not pick it up. Do not smell it. Do not wonder what memory it carries. And whatever you do, do not beat her. Because hunger is older than language, older than prayer, older than the names we give our dead. And some orchards do not grow fruit. They grow what the living still owe. Story 4. The last train to Verens. The station master told me not to board the last train. That was the first warning. The second came from the timetable. Because the train was listed in chalk, not printed, not displayed on the digital board, not announced over the speakers, just written by hand on a blackboard near the closed ticket office. 2340 Veren, platform 3. I remember staring at the word because I had never heard of Varennes. I had been traveling through eastern France for almost 2 weeks, collecting stories and photographs for a magazine piece about forgotten railway towns. The assignment was supposed to be simple, romantic, even. Old stations, mountain branch lines, closed depots, villages that had once depended on trains and now depended on memory. It was the kind of work I liked. Quiet places, old timetables, coffee in paper cups, people who talked more freely when they believed no one important was listening. By the time I reached the station at Montbrun-sur-Lac, I was tired in the pleasant way travel sometimes makes you tired. I had spent the day walking through rain, photographing a disused goods yard, interviewing a retired signalman, and eating bread and cheese on a bench beside a lake, the color of steel. My plan was to catch the evening train to Lyon, sleep in a cheap hotel, then continue west the next morning. That was the plan. But the evening train was cancelled. Then the next one was delayed. Then the storm came down from the mountains, hard and sudden, filling the station roof with the sound of thrown gravel. By 10 at night, the platforms were almost empty. The cafe was closed. The ticket office was dark. One vending machine hummed near the stairs. A woman with a red suitcase had been waiting on platform 1 when I arrived, but sometime after 10:30 she disappeared. I did not see her leave. I only looked up from my phone and noticed the platform was empty. The digital departure board showed 3 cancelled trains and 1 delayed regional service with no estimated time. My phone had 1 bar, then none. The station Wi-Fi asked me to accept terms and conditions, then refused to load the page. That left the station master. He was an old man with a narrow face, white eyebrows, and a dark blue uniform that looked too formal for a place that had almost stopped needing employees. He had been locking interior doors when I approached him. "Excuse me," I said in French. "Is there any train still running tonight?" He looked at me for a long moment. "To where?" "Lyon, if possible. Or anywhere with a hotel." He glanced toward the black windows beyond platform 2. "The storm closed the main line. Until morning? Likely. Is there somewhere to stay nearby? In Montbrun?" He gave a dry little laugh. "The hotel closed in March?" "Of course it did." He took pity on me then. "There is a waiting room. I saw. It is locked. I can leave it open." That sounded like my only choice. Then I noticed the blackboard. It stood beside the ticket office, the kind of thing used for local notices and handwritten changes. Most of it was blank, but across the lower half, in neat white chalk, someone had written 2340 Varennes, platform 3. I pointed. "What about that train?" The station master turned so quickly that I knew before he spoke that something was wrong. He stared at the board. His face lost what little warmth it had. Then he crossed the hall in 3 fast steps and wiped the word Varennes away with his sleeve. White chalk smeared across the dark fabric. "There is no train," he said. But it said no. His voice sharpened. "There is no train to Varennes." "Is Varennes a town?" "No." That answer came too fast. I looked at the chalkboard. The time remained 23:40. The destination was gone, but I could still see the ghost of the letters in powder. Varennes. Who wrote it? He wiped the rest away. "No one." "Someone did." He turned to me. His expression had changed completely. He no longer looked annoyed. He looked afraid for me. "If you see a train at platform 3 tonight, you do not board it." "What is it?" "A mistake." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer that has ever helped anyone." Rain hammered the station roof. Somewhere in the building, metal creaked. The old man stepped closer. "Listen to me carefully. Platform 3 has not been used in years. No scheduled train stops there. No train should arrive there. If one does, you stay inside the station." I tried to smile, to make it normal. "Is this a local ghost story?" He did not smile back. "If the conductor calls your name, you do not answer." That stopped me. How would he know my name? The station master looked toward my bag. "Did you buy a ticket today?" "Yes." "Then the railway knows. The way he said the railway made the word feel larger than it should. Not a campaign, not infrastructure, something old enough to own tracks, tunnels, schedules, and debts. The old man took a key from his belt and opened the waiting room. It smelled of dust, old radiators, and cold stone. There were wooden benches along the walls, a dead fireplace, a vending machine with an empty spiral, and a window looking out toward the platforms. "You stay here," he said. "Until morning? Until daylight." He walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. I was beginning to hate those. What? If you hear the whistle 3 times, cover your ears. Why? Because the 3rd whistle is not for passengers. Then he left. The door remained open, but I heard him lock something farther down the hall. For a while, nothing happened. I sat on a bench with my backpack between my feet and tried to convince myself I had misunderstood everything. Old railwaymen collect stories. Remote stations collect stories. Weather, isolation, strange noises, old tracks, abandoned platforms. People build warnings around places that feel abandoned because warnings give shape to unease. That was what I told myself. I took out my notebook and wrote the word Verens. Under it, I wrote, "No current map result. Ask in morning." Then I underlined it twice. At 11:30, the lights flickered, not just in the waiting room. Across the station, one long pulse. Then another. The radiator clicked off. The vending machine went silent. The rain softened suddenly, as if someone had closed a door between the storm and the building. I looked through the waiting room window. Platform 3 lay beyond the first 2 tracks, partly hidden beneath an old iron canopy. I had noticed it earlier because it looked abandoned. Weeds between the paving stones. Old benches, a rusting sign. No digital display. No passengers. No lights, except one lamp at the far end, flickering weakly. Then that lamp turned on, fully. A second lamp followed, then a third. One by one, lights along platform 3 woke in a line, glowing yellow through the rain. My phone buzzed. No signal, but somehow a notification appeared. Boarding reminder, train to Verens. Departure 23:40. Platform 3. I had never bought a ticket to Verens. I opened the notification. The screen showed my train app, but the interface looked wrong. Older, simpler, black text on a pale grey background. Passenger, Julian Carter. Destination, Verens. Seat, carriage 4, seat 12. Status, expected, not confirmed. Expected. I shut the app. My reflection in the dark window looked pale and distorted. Outside, platform 3 was still empty. Then I heard the rails sing. If you have spent time around trains, you know the sound. A faint metallic tension before anything appears. Tracks vibrating, power somewhere far off. A message traveling through steel. The station was supposed to be closed. The main line was supposed to be blocked. Platform 3 was supposed to be unused. Still, the rails began to hum. A headlight appeared in the rain beyond the far signal. Small at first, then larger, yellow, unsteady. Not the clean white light of a modern train. Something warmer, older. The station master came running across the concourse. He had a lantern in one hand. Not flashlight, a lantern. I do not know where he had gotten it. He stopped outside the waiting room and shouted through the open door, "Stay inside. Do not look at the windows once it stops." That was impossible. It was already too late. The train came into the station without announcement. No engine roar, no electric whine, just the slow scream of brakes and the heavy sigh of something tired from traveling too long. It was an old regional train, dark green carriages, cream stripe, paint dulled by rain. The windows were lit from within by yellow lamps. No logo I recognized, no destination board except a metal plate on the front carriage. Veyren. The train stopped at platform 3. Exactly. Not too far. Not short. As if it had done this forever. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then every carriage door opened at once. No one got off. No one got on. The station clock struck 23:40. Once, twice, 3 times. Then kept striking. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I looked away because clocks are not supposed to do that. The station master stood between the waiting room and the platforms facing the train. His shoulders were rigid. From platform 3 came a conductor's whistle. One sharp note. The old man raised his hands over his ears. I remembered his warning. If you hear the whistle 3 times, cover your ears. I covered mine. The second whistle came. Louder, longer. It seemed to pass through my fingers. The lights in the waiting room dimmed. Then a third whistle blew. It did not sound outside my head. It sounded inside the bones of my face, inside my teeth, inside the small spaces behind my eyes. For 1 second, I heard voices underneath it. Hundreds of them, reading names, not shouting, not whispering, reading from a list. My hands pressed harder over my ears. The whistle ended. The station became still. Then a voice spoke from the platform. Julian Carter. My name, clear, formal, announced in English. The station master turned toward me. His face said, "Do not." The voice came again. Julian Carter, carriage 4, seat 12. I stayed on the bench. I did not answer. The train waited. Rain slid down its windows. Inside the nearest carriage, I could see passengers. Not clearly, just shapes through wet glass. A woman in a hat, a man reading a newspaper, a child kneeling on a seat to look out. All of them still. Too still. The conductor stepped down from carriage 4. He wore a dark uniform with silver buttons and a peaked cap pulled low. He was tall, thin, and dry, despite the rain. His face was narrow and pale. Not dead, not rotten, worse. Ordinary in a way that refused to become memorable. If I tried now to describe his eyes, I cannot. If I try to remember his mouth, it changes. He looked like every railway employee in every old photograph, and none of them. He held a clipboard. Julian Carter, he called. The station master shouted back in French. He is not traveling. The conductor turned toward him. Passengers expected must be accounted for. He is not your passenger. The conductor looked down at the clipboard. He has a ticket. No. He has a name. That is not enough. The conductor smiled faintly. It was enough for you. The station master flinched as if struck. I stood without meaning to. The conductor's gaze moved to me. That was a mistake. For the first time, he looked directly at me, and I felt something open in my memory. Not a door, a timetable, moments arranged like stations, my mother waving goodbye when I left for university, my father asleep in a hospital chair, a woman I loved standing on a platform in Berlin, crying because I had chosen work over staying, a child I had not had, a house I had never bought, every departure I had made and everyone I had refused to call abandonment. The conductor checked his list. "You are delayed," he said. I stepped toward the waiting room door. The station master shouted, "No!" That broke it. I stopped. The conductor's expression did not change. "We can hold for you. I do not want to go to Veyren's." The moment I said the name, every light in the station flickered. The station master closed his eyes. The conductor smiled. "There," he said. "You know the destination." I read it. "That is how most journeys begin." I backed into the waiting room. The conductor lifted his whistle. The station master shouted something in French I did not understand and ran toward him. Not at the train, at the conductor. He reached platform 3 and stopped at the edge of the track, unable or unwilling to cross. The conductor stood on the other side, rain falling between them. "You missed your train once, Henri," the conductor said. The old man's hand shook around the lantern. "My wife boarded. I did not. She waited. She died. She waited." The conductor turned his clipboard around. Even from the waiting room I could see, writing on it, names, rows and rows of names. Some crossed out, some circled. One near the bottom was mine, Julian Carter. Below it was another name, Henry Laval, the station master. Not crossed out, not circled, underlined. The old man lowered his head. "You said if I kept others from boarding, my name would stay where it was." The conductor tilted his head. "And it has for 31 years. And counting." The phrase seemed to amuse him. I began to understand, or thought I did. This was not simply a ghost train. Not only a place that appeared in storms. It was a bargain. A station keeper, standing guard over a platform no one should use. A name kept waiting because he kept other names from being claimed. The conductor looked back at me. "The substitute delays the ledger. It does not erase it." The station master turned. "Run." The word cut through everything. Run. Not stay. Not hide. Run. I grabbed my backpack and ran from the waiting room toward the concourse. Behind me, the train doors remained open. The conductor did not chase me. That scared me most. Things that can wait do not need to run. The concourse had changed. The station I entered earlier had been small. Ticket office, waiting room, stairs to the platforms, a cafe, 2 exits. Now, the concourse stretched far beyond where the walls should have been. Rows of ticket windows lined one side, all closed. Above them hung old destination boards with flipping letters. Paris, Geneva, Milan, Vienna, Varennes, Varennes, Varennes. The main doors were visible at the far end, but with every step they seemed to move farther away. The storm outside was gone. Beyond the glass doors, I saw not the town street but a platform. Another platform, wet, yellow lit, empty. I turned down a side corridor marked exit. It led to stairs. I took them 2 at a time. At the bottom was another corridor, tiled walls, posters in French, old advertisements for mineral water, ski resorts, cigarettes. At the end, another exit sign. I followed it. It led back into the concourse. The train whistle blew behind me. Onze. I covered one ear with my shoulder and kept running. The second whistle came. The departure boards began flipping faster. Letters rattled like teeth. Every destination changed to Varennes. I saw the station master at the far side of the hall. He stood beside a service door, waving his lantern. Here, I ran to him. He unlocked the door and pulled me through. We entered a back passage that smelled of oil, dust, and cold metal. He shut the door behind us and slid a bolt into place. The third whistle blew, this time muffled by the walls. Still, it reached us. The old man clapped both hands over his ears. So did I. The whistle pushed through my palms. Names whispered beneath it. Julian Carter, Henry Laval, Julian Carter, Henry Laval. Others too. Names in French, German, Italian, English, languages I did not recognize. When it ended, the passage was dark except for the lantern. The station master breathed hard. "You said the name," he said. I did not know. No one ever knows. That is why they ask you to read. What is Veyren? He looked down the passage. A station that should have closed. What does that mean? It was a village once. High in the mountains. Too small for the line, but the line came anyway. The railway promised connection, work, visitors, mail, doctors, brides, soldiers home from war. And then the landslide came. We began moving through the service corridor. His voice stayed low. In 1931, a whole section of mountain fell during a storm. The track beyond Veyren's was buried. The village was cut off. The last train out was scheduled at 23:40. He looked at me. It left full. What happened to it? No one knows. It never reached the next station. The rescue crews found track hanging over empty valley. No train, no bodies, no village beyond the slide. That is impossible. Yes. How does a village disappear? He stopped at another door by being taken off the map before everyone inside has finished leaving. He opened the door. We stepped into a stairwell, not the public stairs. Alder, stone, narrow. A smell of damp earth rose from below. The station master started down. Where are we going? Under the platforms. Why? Because the train cannot take what the station has not released. That means nothing to me. It will. The stairs ended in a low tunnel beneath the tracks. Water dripped from brick arches. Old cables ran along the walls. The sound of the train above us became a heavy animal breathing. The station master moved faster than I thought he could. As we passed under platform 3, the ceiling vibrated. I heard carriage doors sliding, voices, passengers murmuring above. The station master stopped beneath a square metal hatch. He set the lantern on the ground and took a ring of keys from his coat. You must leave through the old goods yard. Fine. But first, your name must be removed. From the clipboard? From the station. How? He unlocked the hatch. A metal ladder descended into darkness. You go down. He stared at him. No. Then you go with him. What is down there? The place where the station keeps what it refuses. That was not encouraging. He must have seen my expression, because his voice softened. I have sent many down there. A few came back. All who came back lived. What about the others? They boarded. From above, the conductor's voice echoed faintly through the platform boards. Julian, Carter, final call. The station master looked up. We have less time now. I climbed down. The ladder was slick. The air below smelled of rust, soil, and old paper. My feet touched stone. The station master descended behind me with the lantern. The space beneath the station was larger than it should have been. Not a room, a hall. Brick arches held up a low ceiling. Wooden shelves lined the walls from floor to shadowed height. On the shelves were objects, thousands of them. Tickets, suitcases, coats, shoes, letters tied with string, watches, spectacles, children's toys, military caps, wedding bouquets dried to grey dust. Everything tagged. Every tag had a name. The station master walked between the shelves. Lost property, I whispered. Lost passengers, he said. I stopped. The nearest shelf held a pair of brown leather gloves. The tag read, Matilda Arnaud, Platform 3, 1948. Beside it, a cracked pocket watch, Oscar Weiss. Platform 3, 1956. A child's red shoe, Elise Maret. Platform 3, 1962. On and on. How long has this been happening? As long as I have worked here. Longer. Why does no one shut the station down? He looked at me. Many tried. The train came elsewhere. We reached a wooden desk beneath an arch. On it lay a ledger, a huge, black cover, edges swollen with damp. Beside it sat an old metal ticket punch, a fountain pen, and a shallow dish filled with chalk dust. The ledger was open. Names filled the pages in narrow handwriting, some faded, some fresh. At the bottom of the right page, my name was written in wet black ink. Julian Carter. Departure pending. The station master touched the page, but did not touch the ink. You bought a ticket today. The cancelled route left you between destinations. That makes you easier to call. Why me? Because you looked. That cannot be all. It is often enough. I heard footsteps above, slow, formal. The conductor was walking the platform. The old man took the fountain pen and held it out to me. Write refused. Where? Beside your name. I took the pen. My hand shook. The ink smelt metallic. Like blood and old machinery. I wrote refused. The word sank into the page, then vanished. My name remained. Departure pending. The station master's face tightened. You said the name of the destination. What does that change? It means the ticket is partly accepted. I told him I did not want to go. The railway does not care what you want. It cares what you acknowledge. He turned pages quickly. There may be another way. Above us, the conductor's voice came closer. Not overhead now. In the tunnel, Henry Laval. The station master froze. The voice repeated, Henry Laval, your delay has expired. The old man closed his eyes. I hoped for morning. A door appeared at the far end of the lost property hall. There had been no door there a moment before. Green carriage door, cream stripe, rain running down its little window. From beyond it came warm yellow light and the murmur of passengers. The conductor stepped through. He did not duck under the low arch. The ceiling simply seemed higher around him. He looked at the station master. 31 years is a generous delay. The old man straightened. He refused. The conductor glanced at the ledger. He spoke the destination. He was tricked. All tickets are a kind of trick. Then the conductor looked at me. Julian Carter, you are expected. I backed away. The shelves behind me rattled. Lost objects trembled on their labels. The conductor reached into his coat and took out a ticket. Hal card, black print. He held it toward me. I did not take it. Carriage 4, he said. Seat 12. No. The ticket fluttered as if in wind, though the air was still. The station master whispered, do not touch it. The conductor smiled. He has already touched enough. He pointed at my backpack. I looked down. The side pocket was open. Inside was a ticket. I had not put it there. I pulled it out before thinking. The station master shouted, no, too late. The card was damp and warm. Printed on it, Mon brin sur lac tu Viren. Passenger, Julian Carter. Status, boarded. The word changed as I watched. Expected, boarded. Expected, boarded. Like the ticket was deciding. The conductor extended his hand. Come along. The station master lunged, grabbed the ticket from me and slammed it onto the ledger. Then he took the metal punch and drove it through the card. A sharp click. The lost property hall went silent. The conductor's smile disappeared. The station master struck the ticket again. Click. Again. Click. 3 holes appeared in the card. The conductor stepped forward. That is not permitted, the old man shouted. Neither is taking the living. The shelves exploded into sound. Every object trembled. Every tag fluttered. Names whispered from all sides. Mathilde, Oscar, Elise, Henri, Julian. The conductor reached for the station master. The old man turned to me. Run to the goods yard. What about you? He looked almost peaceful. My wife is tired of waiting. Then he shoved me between two shelves. I ran. Behind me, the conductor's voice rose. Not angry. Administrative. Henry Laval. Boarding required. The old man laughed once. Then, the last train whistled above us. The hall convulsed. Shelves toppled. Suitcases burst open. Letters flew like birds. A child's red shoe struck my shoulder. I ran toward a dark archway, marked by an old sign. Goods, exit. The floor became track ballast. Under my feet, gravel. Then wooden sleepers. Then rails. I was no longer in the hall. I was outside, or almost outside. A goods yard stretched beneath a storm black sky. Old freight wagons stood in weeds. Rain fell sideways. A signal lamp burned red at the far end. Beyond it, I saw the road leading away from the station. I ran toward it. The train on platform 3 began moving. Not forward, beside me. Inside the train, I was suddenly looking through carriage windows as it slid past. Passengers sat in yellow light. Some old, some young, some wet, some dry. A woman in 1930s clothing looked at me with pity. A soldier with no eyes leaned against the glass. A child held up a red shoe. Then I saw the station master. Henri Laval sat in carriage 4, seat 12, my seat. He wore his dark blue uniform. Across from him sat a woman with grey hair under a travelling hat. She held his hand. He looked out at me as the train moved. For 1 second, he smiled. Then the conductor appeared behind him and pulled the window shade down. The train gathered speed. Its last carriage passed. The red tail lamps disappeared into rain. Silence crashed down. I stood in the goods yard, soaked, shaking, and alone. Behind me, Montbrun station looked normal. Small, dark, old. No lights on platform 3. No train, no storm beyond what belonged to ordinary weather. At dawn, a railway employee found me sitting beside the closed freight gate. He asked if I was drunk. I said yes, because that seemed simpler. The official report said I had wandered into a restricted area during a service disruption. The station master on duty could not confirm or deny anything because, according to railway staff, there had been no station master on duty overnight. Montbrun-sur-Lac had been remotely managed for 6 months. The man I described, Henri Laval, had retired in 1992. He was also dead. A local woman at a cafe told me that when I showed her the name, "Poor Henri," she said. "What happened to him?" She glanced toward the station. "Lost his wife." "How?" "Train accident," they said. "Long ago." She boarded during a storm. He stayed behind to finish closing the office. Train never arrived. "Viren?" Her face closed. "Where did you hear that?" "I lead." "Old article." She wiped the counter with a cloth. "There is no Verens." The exact words, again. Not "it is gone." Not "it used to be." There is no Virens. I left town on the first train that actually came. I did not sleep. Not in Lyon. Not in Paris. Not on the flight home. When I unpacked, I found chalk dust in the side pocket of my backpack. No ticket. No proof. Only chalk dust and the word Verens written in my notebook in my own hand. For months, I tried to research it. Old railway maps, disaster archives, regional histories, landslide records. Nothing. No village named Verens. No confirmed train disappearance in 1931. No Montbrun incident matching the story. But there were gaps. A branch line closed without clear explanation. A mountain road removed from later maps. A handful of missing persons reports clustered around storm nights and rural stations. Passengers last seen waiting for delayed trains. People whose luggage remained behind. People with tickets that did not match any scheduled service. In one archive, I found a photograph from 1964, Montbrun-sur-Lac station, platform 3. A young Henri Laval standing beside a departure board. Behind him, half hidden by steam, was a train. Dark green carriage, cream stripe, and on its side, barely visible, a metal destination plate. Veyren. I printed the photograph, then burned it. That did not help. The dreams began the next week. Always the same. A platform at night. Rain. Yellow lamps. A train waiting with open doors. A conductor checking a clipboard. Sometimes he did not look at me. Sometimes he did. Sometimes the station master stood beside me and whispered, "Do not say where you are going." In the worst dreams, I was already on board. Carriage 4, seat 12. Across from me sat Henri Laval and his wife. They never spoke. They only looked past me toward the window, where dark mountains slid by in the rain. Last month, I received an email from a railway booking site I had not used in years. Subject line, "Your journey is approaching." I deleted it. It came back. Then a calendar notification appeared on my phone. Departure, 2340. Destination, Veyren. I deleted that too. The next day, a paper ticket arrived in the mail. No envelope, just the ticket, folded once and slipped through the letterbox. Montbrun-sur-Lac to Veyrens. Passenger, Julian Carter. Status, delayed. Not cancelled, delayed. He tore it up, burned it in the sink, flushed the ashes. That night, at exactly 2340, I heard a train whistle outside my apartment. I live on the 4th floor in a part of London nowhere near a railway line. The whistle blew once, then twice. I covered my ears before the third. Through the walls, faintly, politely, the conductor called, "Julian Carter." I did not answer. The voice came again, "Julian Carter, carriage 4, seat 12. I stayed on the floor until morning with my hands over my ears. When the sun came up, I found chalk writing on the inside of my front door. 3 words. Platform 3, open. I painted over it, then moved. It followed. Of course it followed. Not every night. Not every station. Only when I travel in bad weather. Only when a train is delayed and the platform empties. Only when an old departure board flickers and I catch, for half a second, a destination I know should not be there. Veyren. I do not take last trains anymore. I do not wait alone on rural platforms. I do not read handwritten changes on blackboards. And if a conductor ever calls my name, I pretend I do not hear. Because some places are not destinations. They are debts. Some trains do not arrive to take you somewhere. They arrive because somewhere has remembered you. And if you ever find yourself in a small European station during a storm, and a train appears on a platform no one uses, bound for a village no map will show, listen carefully. If the station master tells you not to board, believe him. If the whistle blows once, step back. If it blows twice, cover your ears. And if it blows a third time, and someone calls your name from the rain, do not answer. Do not look for your seat. Do not say the destination aloud, because the last train to Veyrens is patient. It has crossed out many names. It has circled others. And somewhere in carriage 4, seat 12, there may already be a place waiting for you.